Hi everyone and welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today I am discussing the astrology of and the horoscopes for October 2024. As always, if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to let me know that you'd like it. And if you want to subscribe to the channel for regular astrology updates from me, it would really help out the channel. I am hoping to hit 80,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you want to help me with that, it would be very much appreciated. So if you want to book a private reading with me, the information listed below links to my website. I have now set up a website as a Virgo season to be more efficient because the email system that I had before was just no longer working for me. I couldn't even go in there. I couldn't even go into my emails. So this is a much more efficient way of booking a reading with me. And if you want to book a reading with me, the information is listed below, as well as all my other socials for regular astrology content. So let's look at the astrology of October 2024 to begin with. You can, of course, if you want to, click ahead for your zodiac sign, and I do suggest that you watch your ascendant sign for the most accurate astrology predictions. But if you want to know what the astrology of October 2024 has for us in store collectively, then I'm going to be going into that now. I am going to start with the solar eclipse in Libra, which is happening on October 2nd. I do have a video up on this that goes into this eclipse a little bit more in depth, but this is bringing about new beginnings in our relationships. This eclipse has the potential to bring about a new relationship in our lives. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic partnership, but it can be a significant relationship in our destiny. It can be a destined encounter, a fated encounter, because it is an eclipse and it is linked to the South Node in Libra. So this can be someone that you've connected with in a past life. It can also be a case that it is setting about a new chapter in a current or existing relationship. And it's about integrating the wisdom and the knowledge and the lessons that has come from the South Node being in Libra since July 2023. So it may be that perhaps with the South Node being in Libra, you have been purging and healing and releasing when it comes to how you relate to others in different forms, whether that be knowing your attachment style, say you know you're avoidant or you're anxious, or noting codependency or hyper independence in relationships, and really noticing how you feel about relationships and how they mirror back to you certain parts of yourself. So this solar eclipse can be a time to begin a new relationship based on the wisdom of the past, or to integrate the wisdom into resetting a current relationship, a current standing relationship with this particular eclipse. It is Libra season, so it's about balancing out your needs and another person's needs and finding the middle ground. Not being in an extreme way of being. And 2 weeks later, we do have a full moon in Aries. Now, this is not an eclipse, but it is quite emotionally intense because it is going to be conjunct Chiron in Aries. And so this is a full moon which is to do with the self, which is to do with our own personal identities. The opposite to Libra, which is to do with relationships and connecting with others. So it feels to me that this month, whatever new beginnings are occurring in terms of relationships, whatever new partnerships are beginning, or the reset in current relationships, it feels as though at the same time, there's a need to address wounding within ourselves, wounding surrounding our own identity, wounding surrounding our own, self-acceptance, self-love, self-compassion with the full moon in Aries conjunct Chiron. It is in a square to Mars, and notably, both the solar eclipse in Libra and the full moon in Aries are in squares to Mars in Cancer. Mars also enters its shadow period on October 5th. So Mars, as we know, as we've discussed before, is not necessarily so comfortable in Cancer. Mars has fallen in Cancer. And the reason being is that it doesn't act so directly. Mars in Cancer can be notoriously passive aggressive. It can react very emotionally, very defensively, but it can also be very protective of the people that it loves. And I think with Mars being in a square to both the solar eclipse, which is the new beginning in relationships, and the full moon being in the sign of self, the square to Mars is saying, when it comes to whether you're in a relationship with someone or there's a new beginning in a relationship, or also your relationship to yourself, it is noting where you feel most defensive, where you feel most self-protective, and where you are not necessarily so direct in, conflict with another person. Libra energy itself, as we're in Libra season, can prefer to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, to accept what the other person needs in order to keep the harmony in the relationship and sort of forego their own needs. It's a sign notoriously associated with people pleasing. However, with the South Node being in Libra, people are trying more consciously in many cases to move away from a people pleasing energy. The square to Mars is kind of passive aggressive. It can be a little bit irritable. It can be a little bit aggressive at times. But it does feel that the easiest way to source it or understand it under these particular lunations is to note where we feel defensive or where we have some wounding stored up from family, from the home environment, from our early years, our formative years, and what kind of narratives were going around. What type of child were you? Were you known as the quiet one? Were you known as the easy one that wasn't any trouble? Were you known as the one who was angry, irritable, whatever the case may be? You may be noticing with Mars both being in shadow and also squaring off with the eclipse and the full moon that you may be more aware of why you act a certain way, why maybe you are conflict averse, because perhaps you had to be growing up in a chaotic environment. Not to go all Dr. Phil on this, but I'm just using examples of how the square to Mars can be, sort of looking at where your action or lack of action comes from. And I think with how your early upbringing, your formative years could be affecting both your relationships and both with others and with yourself. So there can be a little bit more conflict going on this month in family matters with the squares to Mars, conflict with family members, conflict with roommates, irritation surrounding property matters, whether you're renovating, whether you are redecorating or purchasing property, whatever the case may be. The squares to Mars in Cancer make me think that this month has that little bit more potential for frustration with family members and in home and property matters as well. So do pay attention for that. The great thing about the full moon in Aries is it's exposing our wounding within ourselves. Chiron in Aries is interesting because it shows up very commonly in the charts of notorious actors. Two examples off the top of my head that I remember would be Leonardo DiCaprio, but also Renee Zellweger. Two people that are really well known for their acting roles, for being able to step into their character. And the reason that Chiron in Aries comes up so frequently in the charts of very successful or talented actors or actresses is because it is notorious for having wounding within one's own identity and one's sense of self. So the ability to step into somebody else's role, to play another character, to get away from oneself can feel like a relief. This full moon doesn't necessarily feel like a relief though. It feels as though the wounding that we have within ourselves, our insecurities, are on full display. Wounding surrounding how we identify ourselves, the narratives that we have for ourselves are on full display at this full moon, and it can feel a little bit emotional. The square to Mars means it can be a little bit touchy, a little bit defensive, a little bit aggressive, passive aggressive, more so with Mars in Cancer. But there's a sextile to Jupiter at the time of this full moon, which brings a lot of wisdom and opportunity to learn. Jupiter will be in retrograde by the time of this full moon because Jupiter goes retrograde in Gemini on the 9th of October at 21 degrees of Gemini. So if you have anything at 20, 21, 22 degrees of Gemini, you're going to feel this. Jupiter is going to be spending that little bit extra time on your placement if you do. If you have anything at 20 to 22 of the air signs, you might be really feeling the benefit of this as Jupiter spends a little bit longer there. But Jupiter retrograde is a time of, now firstly, Jupiter retrograde, 4 months of the year. It's a common cycle. It happens every time Jupiter goes into another sign. It's where we have more internal growth. So Jupiter is the planet of growth, abundance, expansion, knowledge, wisdom, higher understanding, seeing what it all means, our beliefs. And retrograde energy turns it that little bit more internal. So this is reflecting on how you've grown. This is reflecting on your beliefs, your belief systems. Now, Jupiter in Gemini is tricky because Gemini is to do with the facts, and Jupiter is to do with the higher perspective, the bigger picture, the belief, the faith. And so Jupiter is not necessarily so comfortable in Gemini. In fact, the sky in October is really interesting because the sun is not necessarily, it's not comfortable in Libra. Venus is not comfortable in Scorpio, Mars is not comfortable in Cancer, Jupiter is not comfortable in Gemini, which means that we're having to find alternative ways to get to the point, to make things happen, to look at things that little bit differently, and to be okay with the shadow aspects of these different placements. Now, as I said before, I think I said it in the other video for the solar eclipse in Libra, because it's ruled by Venus and Scorpio, planets being in detriment or planets being in fall are not inherently bad. Every planet in a sign has its higher and lower frequencies. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is going to be a time of reflection where you notice how thoughts become things. I was watching this video by I think it's called the behavioral panel or the body language panel. I think it's the behavioral panel. But there is a man in it called Greg. I think it's Greg Hartley. But he was mentioning about echo chambers and how people can surround themselves with others who... It's easier now thanks to social media, again, a Gemini energy, it's easier now thanks to social media to surround yourself with people who agree with you, who believe in the same things that you do. But the greatest echo chamber of all is inside your skull. And so with Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, you may start to understand how your thoughts are becoming things. Your dominant thoughts are being reflected in your external reality. The things that you say are being manifested out loud. So you might notice with Jupiter retrograde, you can actually see quite clearly how your internal beliefs and what you say and what you think are manifesting. And this is a time to course correct if you need to, or perhaps really lean into the power of that. So you could see with Gemini energy, which is about facts, wanting to believe in something higher, but needing some sort of concrete proof or evidence. And you might actually just simply see the evidence of what you've been thinking predominantly or what you've been saying. Jupiter in Gemini is really a time to focus on speaking things into existence or not speaking things into existence. You know, Gemini is the twins. There's two different ways of looking at this. If you're talking a lot about something that is causing you frustration, you may be freezing it there in motion and attaching it to you and keeping it with you. Whereas if you're wanting something in your life, talk about it more, talk about the possibilities. Try to simply open the mind a little bit. Jupiter in Gemini, Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, turning the energy into your mind. Jupiter's a very expansive energy. Gemini is the mind. Open it. You don't necessarily have to deceive yourself if you're very focused on the facts of the matter. Say you're trying to get a new job and you're focusing so much on the jobs that are rejecting you, the jobs that are saying no to you, and why you're not going to be employed. And that's all you can think about. That's all you can focus on. That's all you can talk about. It may seem a little bit alien to say, I am attractive to prospective employers. It is easy for me to, it may be difficult to go that far in the opposite direction to course correct. It may simply be easier to say, someone will want to hire me. You know, it can be more simple to say something that is a little bit different and a bit more open with the Jupiter in retrograde and Gemini energy. So you will see with Jupiter retrograde how you are creating your own luck. When Jupiter is direct, a lot of the time things can come to us directly. And when Jupiter is retrograde, we notice what we're doing, how we're getting in our own way, or how we're helping ourselves when it comes to expansion and growth. It's a great time to reflect on your beliefs when it comes to the mind, when it comes to what you're thinking and how that does create your reality. One of the biggest things this month is Pluto going direct at the anaretic degree of Capricorn on the 11th of October. So it's pretty important. Pluto has of course crossed this degree before. Pluto went into the 29th degree of Capricorn at the very end of 2023, the very beginning of 2024, before moving into Aquarius. Pluto re-entered Capricorn at the crisis degree, I believe the 1st of September it was, and will be there until late November. Now, this is very important. This day may be very important. You may notice something changing, something ending, something shifting, most likely collectively at this time. It is a time where the structures that we have built, the hierarchies that we have, they fall, they crumble, they change. Do they all have to fall and crumble on that day? No. Are they already falling and crumbling? Yes. But you may notice from October 11th until November, I'm not exactly sure of the date, I feel it might be the 17th of November. Off the top of my head, it's late November. It may be a case where, in fact, you know what, I have the notes here. It may be a case where we're noticing that when it comes to leadership, when it comes to hierarchies, when it comes to those in positions of power, there are substantial changes. There are, significant adjustments that need to be made with Pluto being at the crisis degree of Capricorn. You know, it's a very important time. Pluto is in Capricorn until the 19th of November. Sorry, I just needed to double check that. I didn't want to leave you hanging. So Pluto being in Capricorn until the 19th of November. Leadership may change. There may be crisis when it comes to leaderships, when it comes to political parties as well, realizing that maybe it's less to do with a political party and more to do with the system that needs to change. You know, it's sort of like putting different figures that are in the same parties over and over and over and over in different places, whereas Pluto in Capricorn really wants to change the system. It really wants to change the structures rather than the leaders. You know what I mean? It wants to shift the power dynamics as it goes into Aquarius, shift some more power back to a majority, shift more power back to people rather than the top 1%, so to speak. These structures where there's corruption, where there's deception, where there is abuse of power are changing, are falling. And this can be a time of wrapping up and releasing these different types of structures. Does it mean everything is going to disappear that is corrupt? No. Does it mean that everything is going to change completely? These things take time. Pluto's shifting in and out of Capricorn and Aquarius. This is the final stint of Capricorn. This is going to be a period of significant change and wrapping up, and also exposure of deception, of corruption when it comes to very prominent figures, you know, billionaires, very wealthy people, very prominent people with a lot of power, with a lot of status, with a lot of land, with a lot of prestige, with a lot of fame. It does tend to expose those people most directly because it's 29 degrees of Capricorn. People who have a lot of power and where there is abuses of power. That's the world perspective. In our own lives, Pluto going over the 29th degree of Capricorn is probably going to be felt more on a psychological level. Pluto is the ruler of the 8th house in modern astrology, and it is associated with trauma, with emotional baggage, with inherited baggage, ancestral karma, ancestral baggage, wounding, and crisis. So for a lot of us, with whatever the Capricorn part of your chart is, there may be some processing going on when it comes to the past bad experiences with Pluto going through that particular house. A lot of the time where Pluto transits, we can notice power struggles, we can notice betrayals, we can notice trauma, we can notice baggage, we can notice great change, we can also notice great transformation, taking our power back, taking back control in our lives in some capacity. You know, it's, as I say, there's the higher and the lower vibrations of all of these different things. This may be a case where in your Capricorn part of your chart, you're taking back your power. You're realizing you have power. Past memories, past experiences can come up to be processed or come up to take back your power. And noticing where you have power in how you react to things and what you make of certain situations. You're realizing where you can take back your power in a situation where maybe at one point you felt powerless. You maybe felt at one point you were quite afraid. You felt like you couldn't do anything about this. You were under someone else's power, under someone else's spell. And you might be processing that, whether that is a very toxic relationship in your past, whether that was a toxic work situation in your past. You may be processing it and wrapping up that particular cycle. So it can be felt psychologically for a lot of people. But it can also be where you're wanting to release something that needs to go, something that needs to be let go of. Whether, as I say, in the 11th house, that could be a friendship now. Whether that is in your 7th house, that could be a key relationship in your life. In your 5th house, this is how it can play out mundanely. In your 5th house, it could be your children leaving home to go begin their adult life at university or something like that. Significant change and needing to let something go, needing to release something to set it free, so to speak. Because sometimes it can play out, you know, it doesn't have to be as dramatic as sometimes it is portrayed to be. Oftentimes with astrology, it's very archetypal and symbolic. It's not necessarily as huge as we think. It can really be felt, as I say, internalized and on a psychological level. So those are the key highlights of October. I'm going to do a tarot card for October and see what the message will be for October 2024 with Libra season and Scorpio season. I also want to mention, if you're a fan of Halloween, if you're a fan of Samhain, we do find this Halloween that the moon will be in Scorpio and it will be gearing up to be a new moon. It'll be the dark of the moon. So people prefer there to be full moons in Halloween, understandably, but the dark of the moon is that little bit more introspective, that little bit more inward that little bit more, where we're reflective of what it is that we want to begin. So with Halloween being in the mix, the new moon coming up, it is a wonderful time to cast your mind forward of what it is that you do want to change, what you want to transform. Obviously, the new moon is going to be covered in the November video, but I just wanted to mention for anyone who does celebrate Halloween that it really is very witchy with the sun and moon both in Scorpio, and a great time to do some shadow work with the new moon coming up, so that you can start afresh and integrate the shadow work that you've been doing with this particular new moon coming up in November in Scorpio. So let's get a card for October 2024. Ace of Wands, new beginnings. I quite like this. This is all about new passions, new beginning, fresh starts. It is really, with that particular card, reminding me of the full moon conjunct Chiron, where there could be inspiration. The amazing thing about Chiron is that Chiron, despite being a wounded healer, had many talents and a real talent for healing others. So this can be where whatever it is that comes up as a wound for you is something that you can actually integrate into your passions and your hobbies to make you better at it, or to help other people get better at it. With the Ace of Wands. I'm also noticing that the Nine of Wands is underneath. For those of you that are just desperately clinging on for a new beginning, a new spark, something new in your life, I feel that this could be the month. The Nine of Wands is about not giving up. It's nearly there. It's nearly time. It's nearly happened. And this solar eclipse may usher in a new beginning that you feel very excited about, or you feel very passionate about. Or it may just simply be the new beginning that you have been pushing for, hoping for, the creative spark that you have needed with this particular energy. You know, that full moon in Aries is really very fiery. Then the sextile to Jupiter does bring opportunity, that through accepting our own wounding and our own shadow and who we are and the parts of us that we don't like, we can get a lot of wisdom from it. We can learn a lot from it. It can make us more talented. It can make us more creative. And it can really open us up to a different way of looking at it, a different way of thinking about it and viewing our wounding. As I say, Chiron, while Chiron was not able to heal themselves and they had their own wounding, they could absolutely help other people through that experience. And you often see with people who are, you know, tarot readers or astrologers or therapists or doctors, anybody that's in any kind of profession where you're wanting to help other people. I want to say, looking specifically at the medical field, I remember watching a video of a YouTube doctor, and he was speaking about how when he was in medical school, he lost his mother. And how painful it was, and she died in the hospital, how painful it was for him. And obviously that creates a wound that can't be healed. He did say that it made him a better doctor because he knew what people in those situations of loss were going through, and he knew how to behave as a member of staff. You know, he spoke about his experience with staff at the time, what was good, what wasn't, and how it really made him a better doctor overall with what he was doing and how he was practicing medicine. So I just think that's worth mentioning as an example of how sometimes our wounding and our pain can actually make us better at something, more talented at something. So if you feel like you have a wound that just will not heal and you suspect it's maybe keeping you back from something, it may actually be something that makes you better at that thing or works out better in the long run for you. Something that really makes you a better person, more talented, more successful at what it is that you do, and how you can sort of use your wounding to be, you know, turning it into a power. Turning your pain into power is sort of what I'm seeing with this combination and that full moon specifically. So that is what I have for October. I hope you all have a wonderful month. The timestamps are listed below for the astrological horoscopes. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aries, welcome to your October horoscope. Hope you're all doing really well. So Aries, this month we have quite a lot of important activity happening for you on an individual level, but also when it comes to partnerships. I want to start with you. So your ruler Mars is in Cancer, your 4th house, and will actually go into shadow from the 5th of October. So with the shadow period, you may find from the 5th onwards, you know, I kind of want to say, I think from an energy level, perspective, you might not necessarily be feeling the most energetic or the most outgoing with Mars being in Cancer in your 4th house. But it may also be with Mars entering the shadow period that you start to feel a little bit more insular, or just kind of wanting to spend a bit more time at home, or a bit more tired energetically, or a little bit like you have less pep to do things. And with there being a full moon in your sign this month as well, and the fact that both the new moon, the solar eclipse, and the full moon this month are in a square to your ruler Mars, I feel like it would be a good month to, if you can, and I know this is, you're not the right audience to ask for this, but to maybe take it a little bit easier and a little bit slower at times. And if you do have, moments of excess energy, what you maybe want to channel it into is a home project, a property project. A lot of you could be renovating or reconstructing or constructing a room, a living space, a property. You could be actually putting some physical effort or directing physical effort into doing up a property, or redecorating, or DIY, or something like that, with Mars being in your 4th house. Just bear in mind that if you are bringing in anybody new, or you are signing contracts and things like that, just be mindful, Aries, that with Mars going into shadow, the things that are occurring with these home properties, or if it isn't properties or renovations or things like that, if it is a bit of discord, friction, or a family project either, just bear in mind that this is ground that you will cover again. So there can be delays, there can be a need to redo some of the things. So just, I guess, have a little bit of patience, because you will be covering this ground again in the spring with whatever's going on in home and family. I do think for a lot of you it's looking like reconstruction to a home, redecorating, taking action on a property, or it could be some tension, discord when it comes to property matters, or when it comes to home and family. But it could also be that you're working on a home project or a property project with family. This is where your energy is going. With Mars being in your 4th house, you're putting your energy into the home, into family. But also there's that full moon in your sign in the 17th. So if you notice the energy in the few days before and the few days after, you could possibly be feeling a little bit more emotional. It's conjunct Chiron in your 1st house. So if there are any, and I won't tell anyone if you don't, but if there are any insecurities that you have surrounding yourself, because we all have them. When Chiron goes to the 1st house, oftentimes it can result in periods of feeling like you may never be healed, or feeling as though there's something about you that can't be healed, or noticing your own wounding when it comes to who you are and identity matters, but also just, wounding surrounding your life force in general. This may be a time, or your physical body, that can be literal wounds. It could be that you have an ailment that you're dealing with currently. With this full moon being conjunct Chiron, maybe it's time to finally look at that. Say you have something that's been bothering you physically for a while, and you've just not been looking at it, or you've not done anything about it. This might be the time to do it. This might be the time to finally book that appointment or see the doctor. Or it could be, if it's a wounding when it comes to insecurity about something, it could be time that you look at it with a little bit of, self-compassion, and look at ways to heal that. And with the square to Mars, it could be something that does feel a bit painful. It feels a little bit vulnerable. It feels a little bit raw, but you can absolutely do some serious healing here, and you can also get a lot of wisdom and information about it with Jupiter in the 3rd. So maybe you notice that if you're perhaps seeing a specialist about something physically, that they have a lot of information, they have a lot of wisdom, and you feel like you're really learning something, and you feel better. You feel more enlightened because of what you've learned. But it certainly puts the spotlight on you, and you may feel more emotional, and that's okay. And you may come to some moment of clarity or illumination when it comes to your relationship with yourself. And that moves me on to your relationships with others, because we do have a solar eclipse in your opposite sign. The sun is there until the 22nd. Mercury's there until the 13th. There's a lot of focus, Aries, on your relationships to other people. This can take the form of romantic partnerships, but it can also take the form of business relationships and partnerships, collaborations, working one-on-one with somebody. It can be a best friend, it can be a client, but it usually puts a spotlight on your interactions with other people. With the solar eclipse, for a lot of you, this could absolutely portend to a new relationship. The eclipse is happening on the 2nd, but we notice its effects up to 6 months after. But it can portend to a new relationship for you in your life of some kind. I do think for most of you, it could be a new intimate relationship if you're single, but it could also be in a business partnership, joint financial arrangements, with Venus being in your 8th house. So it could be that whatever relationship is forming in some capacity, whether it is, emotionally, whether it is in terms of finances, it feels as though you are merging with somebody else. I do feel as though you may have you may receive some healing from this connection with another person, but it may also make you feel a little bit nervous at times with the square to Mars in your 4th house. It could be a little triggering here and there, as any relationship can be. But it feels as though there are fated new beginnings in your relationships. And if it's not a new relationship, this can be a new beginning in a current relationship, a new stage, elevating it to a new level, or for some of you, it can be leaving a relationship. One thing I will say about this, with the South Node being in Libra at the same time, it is possible for a lot of you to regenerate an old relationship, to go back to an ex, to go back to someone you used to date, or to pick up where you left off with someone from the past. That can be a potential. With Venus being in Scorpio, if that is the case, I'd say it would be very important to be emotionally open and honest with the person, and for any relationship really, because Venus doesn't necessarily do so well in Scorpio from an astrological perspective. It can be quite jealous and quite possessive, and it can run to obsession. There's the higher and lower vibrations of any placement, but it can also be where you truly can be vulnerable with another person and very loyal. So it has its good and its bad, but all that matters about it is that really you have to be able to meet it with some degree of intensity. It'll show you parts of yourself that you've maybe not explored before, whether that be, as I say, whatever kind the relationship is. Aries. Jupiter goes retrograde this month on the 9th in your 3rd house. And I think for a lot of you, this is going to be reflecting on the way that you think, particularly about the world, particularly about your luck, particularly about your beliefs. You're probably going to be reinvestigating why you think a certain way, how your thought patterns are working, and maybe reflecting on how your thoughts manifest your reality. And I think maybe reflecting on different spiritual viewpoints, the higher purpose that you serve, the higher meaning of it all, and thinking of it perhaps by picking up a book you used to love, or you meant to read, or you started but you didn't finish, and reflecting on certain information that you have about spiritual topics. It can also be about education, deciding to go back and finish that course, or do that exam or something like that. It can also be a really good study period if there's something that you want to study. Aries. Pluto goes direct. So we've Jupiter going retrograde, but with Pluto going direct on the 11th to do its final stint over the 29th degree of Capricorn, your 10th house. Something in this time period will change for you professionally. That does not necessarily mean a new job or the ending of a job. It could be for some of you, but Pluto can really be it can be really felt on a psychological level, and you may have moments of making changes when it comes to existing power dynamics, when it comes to your relationship to power, when it comes to your relationship with authority, being a boss or having a boss. There can be changes that happen here, absolutely. People in positions of leadership can leave your workplace, step down. You can find yourself in a position of leadership. You can change what you want career-wise completely. And with Pluto in the modern sense ruling your financial joint relationships, you may also sever a relationship to someone from a business perspective, with Pluto being direct in Capricorn. Mercury leaves your 7th house on the 13th. Until that point, Mercury will bring you the gift of the gab when it comes to negotiating, when it comes to balancing, when it comes to finding common ground or taking the middle path in relationships, to having good conversations with partners or prospective partners. When Mercury enters Scorpio on the 13th, you may find yourself a little bit more interested in the mystery of it all, the occult. You might find yourself more interested in darker subjects. You may find yourself longing for a good mystery, and you may find yourself talking about things that are considered a little bit more taboo with other people. And that may also be what you're thinking about, Aries. Venus leaves that sector on the 17th and enters your 9th house. If you're looking for love, you may find it on vacation or while traveling or at university, or you may find it with very well-educated people. Love will certainly take on a more light-hearted and open nature when Venus is going through the 9th house. It's also a nice time to travel with a partner, or perhaps it's very good for clients, having clients in different countries from different backgrounds as well, with Venus being in Sagittarius. The Sun enters your 8th house on the 22nd. This is great for spooky season. With the Sun being in the 8th house, what lights you up are the mysteries, are the darker subjects, the taboo. You may find yourself getting absolutely obsessed with a story, or obsessed with a new passion, or really interested in something that is a bit of a mystery to you. But it also shines a light on your partner, whatever type of partner that may be, their resources and their finances. And this might be something that is taking your attention, financial matters with other people, and really shining a light on your joint financial relationships or your intimate relationships in general, Aries. You might be noticing more about a partner or a close relationship. You might really be sharing some secrets together with the Sun in Scorpio. But that is what I have for you, Aries. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Taurus, welcome to October. I hope you're having a great month so far. So Taurus, this is going to be a month that puts quite a bit of focus onto your health, your well-being, but also your work. Essentially, what you do on a day-to-day basis could change this month. We do have a solar eclipse in Libra, and this for you is going to be a time where you may experience changes or new beginnings when it comes to your routine, when it comes to your job, when it comes to what you do for work, what services you provide, what you do in the daily, essentially, what your everyday life looks like. There may be a new beginning here for you, potentially with a conjunction to Mercury, a new commute or a new way of transporting yourself to work, to or from work. But this could also be changes in your working relationships, with the ruler of this eclipse, Venus, being in your 7th house of one-on-one relationships. Can also be that perhaps a new job or a new service actually leads you to a new partner, a new best friend, or a prospective business relationship. But I also think this can be very related to your health, Taurus. So it may be a case that you are hiring someone to help you with your fitness or your well-being. You might hire a coach, you might hire a nutritionist, you might get a new doctor, you might get a new personal trainer, someone to really help you with a new beginning in your health. Because with the South Node going through the 6th house since July of last year, you might have noticed that you really wanted to give up some habits health-wise, or maybe you were let go from a job and now you want to make sure that this one goes well, or you have good relationships, or you've maybe learned a lot about the way that you work, your routine, your health, and there may have been some tough experiences, and you're bringing that wisdom and that knowledge and what you've changed forward into a new beginning, work or health wise. There is a full moon this month in your 12th house, and it's conjunct Chiron. It's on the 17th, and around the time of the full moon you might be noticing that you're a bit more sensitive, and it's a really beautiful full moon for you actually to do some healing. When a full moon happens in the 12th house, the reason it's so good for healing is because it shines a light on the stuff that you don't ordinarily see. The 12th house is essentially your blind spot. So with Chiron going through there, it is a wonderful time to heal some wounds that you didn't realize that you had. And you can really get a bit of a spotlight on them. And you might want to spend more time around this full moon in retreat, in solitude. You might want to spend more time reflecting. You might want to spend more time sleeping, resting, journaling. You know, Mars, the ruler of this full moon's in your 3rd. You might want to write. You might want to write letters to people from the past. Mars will be in shadow by this point. And you might just feel a little bit more emotional, a bit more sensitive, and a bit more reflective on your, you know, battle scars, your wounds, because it's an Aries, it's the warrior sign. So you might want to reflect on your battle wounds, past conflicts, past issues surrounding aggression or anger in your life. You might have some trapped anger that you need to release in a safe way around the time of this full moon. You know, maybe just slamming your pillow on the floor or something like that. But because it's 12th house, is still pretty sleepy, you might just notice more what emotions you're holding in the body, and you might feel inclined to let them go. I do feel with the ruler of this full moon, Mars being in Cancer in your 3rd house, that you could possibly want to communicate quite angry words around this time, but you choose not to. You choose more so to deal with them privately, but making sure that you give yourself the time and attention to feel them through, Taurus. And you could also find that you're a bit emotional about matters surrounding siblings or surrounding your neighbours or just surrounding your a general state of thinking, I would say, around with this full moon in Aries, Taurus. Jupiter is going to go retrograde in your 2nd house in the 9th. This is a good time to reevaluate and reflect not only your lessons and your wisdom, but also your beliefs when it comes to your money, when it comes to your worthiness, when it comes to your value. Jupiter being in the 2nd, you might want to reflect on your spending, your saving, just take a financial inventory and really get to the fine details about it, Taurus. You know, look over the facts with it being in Gemini. Your financial affairs is an area of life you might be reflecting on. And again, with Jupiter, it could be reflecting on your beliefs surrounding it, but it could also be reflecting on your values when it comes to what matters most to you in life. You know, what is the most important thing to you at this particular time. It can also be a time when you're reflecting on how you spend your money on travel or education as well. And Jupiter retrograde is a wonderful time to reflect and really integrate the wisdom that you've acquired in the 2nd house. So your values, your inherent gifts that you have and you share with the world as well, and what you need could be something you're reflecting on as well, particularly through a communication standpoint, because it is Gemini. You know, what you need in terms of communication with other people. Pluto goes direct on the 11th, and Pluto going direct in Capricorn is a rite of passage for all of us, but for you it's happening in your 9th house. So this is pretty interesting because with Jupiter being the planet associated with the 9th house, it's that wisdom, it's that worldview, it's that spiritual perspective. Pluto going back in here, there could be some massive change that you have when it comes to what you believe in, or you may become aware of what that change needs to be. But it can also be, for some of you, that you're wrapping up a period of higher education. And if it is, it's probably quite substantial. It could be a significant, degree or doctorate or saga of your education. And if it's not that, it could also be changes when it comes to travel relocation, visas, passports, things like that. There could be significant changes happening there with it being the final degree of Capricorn. You are wrapping up a chapter, a saga that has been going on since 2008. But this final degree of Capricorn has been going on over the last year, just under a year. So it is a time where you might be already pretty aware of what this is. And it could be something that's changed you profoundly, Taurus. And maybe even change the way that you relate to other people. Speaking of which, Venus is in your 7th house of relationships until the 17th. Really beautiful time for love, for connecting to another person, for forming a relationship, for formalizing a relationship, particularly as Venus is going to trine Saturn. You know, there's a sense of being able to get on the same page about the future, being able to get on the same page about how the relationship is going to work, realizing if you're on the same page or not, and if not, you may decide, okay, this is not the person for me. But I do think for a lot of you that you may have particular importance put on your relationships this month. You know, you really value connection, you really value depth in another person, going deep with somebody, with Venus being in Scorpio. So whether that is a partner, a best friend, a client, whatever the case may be, Taurus, there will be periods this month where you really enjoy deep connection with another person. And if you are looking to meet someone, this is a pretty good time with Venus being in your 7th house of relationships. Venus enters your 8th house on the 17th. And this can be really nice for joint financial relationships or just benefiting from another person, you know, someone else wanting to share with you, to give with you. It can also be a really good time for working through your taxes, benefiting from the system, so to speak. So maybe getting a tax rebate or something like that. But I do think for a lot of you, you know, I actually think for a few of you, a tax rebate could be on the way, because there's going to be a Mercury retrograde in that sector in November into December. But I digress, that's a bit far ahead. Venus going through the 8th house can also be a beautiful time for connecting with someone intimately. So I will say this month for you, Taurus, I think there's an emphasis on connection with other people, current or potential, with Venus going through your 7th and 8th house. The Sun enters your 7th house on the 22nd, Mercury enters that sector on the 13th, and it shines the light even brighter on your partnerships and your relationships. It's where you're going to be focused most, Taurus, forming alliances with other people, connecting with other people on a one-on-one basis, and building relationships, maybe forming new ones, but also maybe connecting and also reevaluating the standing ones in your life. That's what I have for you, Taurus, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Gemini, welcome to October. I hope you're having a really good month so far. So Gemini, we have a solar eclipse in Libra, and this is your 5th house. So for a lot of you, there could be some sort of new start or new beginning occurring when it comes to your children, you know, regardless of what age they are. It could be your adult children, it could be your small children. For some of you, it could be a pregnancy or a birth that's taking place at this time, either your own, your partner's, or a significant one in your life. But it can also be a new chapter in the life of one of your children. And it could be health related, because the ruler of this eclipse is in the 6th house, or maybe some chapter or new beginning where you're being very helpful with Venus being in the 6th house. You're really helping them out with something, you're providing some sort of service or assistance to them. It could also be for a lot of you, if it's nothing to do with children at all, it could be that you're actually beginning something quite passionate, quite fun, something that you have a lot of joy doing, something that you really get excited about, something that you really love to do, or it could be a new chapter within, you know, an existing passion of yours, something that you love to do. But I feel like regardless of how much you love to do it, Venus in the 6th, you're probably going to be putting in a bit of work at the same time. You're probably going to be quite dedicated to it. You're probably going to be putting in a lot of effort, taking some responsibility with it as well, with Venus being there, Gemini. So perhaps you are, you know, working on something with one of your children, or you're, you have a passion project and it's going to take a lot of work, but either way, whatever it is that you're beginning or what's starting at the time of this eclipse, it could be the case with Venus in the 6th that it's going to require you to take a new role or take on a bit of responsibility with what it is that you're doing. And it might also be that you're taking on a bit of responsibility when it comes to, you know, career matters. Venus and Mars are both in a trine to Saturn. Saturn's in your 10th. We just had a lunar eclipse in your 10th 2 weeks before the eclipse in your 5th. So it could be a case that there are career changes and you're having to wear a new hat, so to speak. But hopefully for a lot of you, you're having a lot of fun, or you're starting something fun around the time of the eclipse. One of the main things that's happening for you this month, Gemini, is that we do have a Jupiter retrograde in your sign. Jupiter goes retrograde 4 months of the year. It happens. But it's more significant when it's in your sign, because a lot of the reflection that you're doing is you. You're reflecting on yourself. You're reflecting on your Jupiter in Gemini cycle so far. Has it been a lucky one for you? Has it been a little lackluster? Have you learned a lot? Have you grown a lot? Have you felt quite expansive and open, or have you traveled a bit more? If you feel like it's not going as well as you'd hope, this is a good time to reflect on what you would like it to be, and also what you could do to make it more expansive for you. Because when Jupiter goes retrograde, it tends to be more a time where we make our own luck. You know, the actions that we take are more significant than what is bestowed upon us. We make our own blessings. So you might be thinking of doing things a little bit differently, Gemini, or even changing your approach and your viewpoint to your life as well with Jupiter retrograde. Pluto goes direct in Capricorn on the 11th, and this is the final hurrah in your 8th house. This is the final direct motion in your 8th house. Now, Pluto going through the 8th could have brought a lot of transformation. It could obviously have brought you quite painful endings, psychological challenges. It could have brought you financial challenges at different times during its cycle. But you might be finding with Pluto going direct now that you have some idea of what changes you want to make, quick, profound changes. And for some of you, it won't be, I have to tell you, it won't be anything, because Pluto's been going over this degree for a little while. But I think for some of you, it could be that you're wanting to do a little bit of investigation and a little bit of research, maybe into matters of inheritance, joint tax resources, government resources, loans, your taxes. For some of you, you could be wrapping up a cycle, so you could be receiving your inheritance, or it could be that you're not paying taxes anymore. You know, say for example with the lunar eclipse and Saturn and Pisces, you retired. So it could be that for some of you, you're wrapping up a particular financial resource from somebody else, or money that you owe, and you could be clearing debt as well, Gemini. Mercury is going to be in your 5th house until the 13th, meaning that the things that you talk about are probably going to be fun, exciting. It's a great time for creative writing. It's a great time for interesting your mind in things that you love to do, that are fun, that are exciting, that help you express yourself. When Mercury moves into Scorpio on the 13th, though, you might be feeling a little bit more work focused, a little bit more detail oriented, wanting to organize your workspace, wanting to organize your gym routine, your nutrition, things like that, with Mercury going through the 6th house. And the Sun enters your 6th house on the 22nd, so there is a bit of a push to get organized in general. And it could be that you're organizing what you eat, how you exercise, and how you look after yourself, and also just putting in a bit more work to what it is that you are doing for your job, Gemini, or just putting in a little bit more effort into your routine. You've more energy for it. That's where your main focus is when the Sun is there. There's a full moon in Aries on the 17th, and for you, this is happening in your sector of social networking. So Chiron is conjunct this full moon. And so if you have any wounding, if you have any feeling you don't belong, if you have any feelings of rejection or wounding when it comes to friendships, groups of people, teams, you know, people, groups of people that you feel a part of, or that you felt a part of, if you have any wounding around that, and I feel like it could be that you feel left out, or you feel like you don't belong, or you feel maybe just a little bit emotional about your friendship status or a friendship status, Gemini, but it feels like around the time of this full moon, there's some potential for healing when it comes to your connections to other people. It may actually be, though, that if it's not within you, it's that you want to perhaps volunteer to help wounded people, people who are going through a lot, who are wounded by war, perhaps, with this being an Aries, people who are wounded by battle, or people who are suffering. You're really wanting to help. With this full moon in the 11th house, you're wanting to have a healing impact on the world, Gemini. And it's square Mars in Cancer, so it feels like maybe if you can't help resourcefully, or when it comes to finances, it could be a case that maybe you're going to, you know, rely more on the skills that you have, that you've built through teamwork or through other people. But with the sextile to Jupiter in your first house, you have something about you that can help. Maybe you have wisdom, maybe you have knowledge, and this is either helping you heal when it comes to your wounding, or helping other people heal when it comes to your wounding. But I think you're really wanting to help around the time of that full moon in Aries, and Venus is going to be at the anoretic degree at the time of that full moon in your 6th house. So I feel like you're feeling this voluntary energy where you really want to help other people who are maybe going through a crisis, friends who are going through a crisis, teams. It could absolutely be a time when a friend of yours that maybe you thought was doing quite well breaks down in tears when you're having brunch or something, and you think, oh, I didn't realise. But it could be a case that something quite emotional is happening, a bit of a catharsis around the time of that full moon. I just want to touch on Mars too, because Mars is in your 2nd house all month, but Mars is actually hitting the shadow period on the 5th. So if you have something that you want to spend your money on, if you have a purchase perhaps, be careful of spending too much or spending too frequently with Mars being in Cancer this month, because you're going to cover this old ground next year. You're going to be doing this again. So you may buy cheap and buy twice, or you may have buyer's remorse. So just be maybe a little slower to spend, or, you know, leave things sitting in your basket for a couple of days and see if you still want them. I feel as though with Mars being in the 2nd for you, and it going into the shadow period, it might just be a better time to take a little longer to think about what it is that you want to purchase, or slow your spending a little bit, especially because Mars is squaring both the eclipse and the full moon. So it just might be something that you regret a little bit later, Gemini. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Cancer, welcome to your October horoscope. Hope you're doing really well. So Cancer, I want to mention your 1st house to start, because Mars is going to be in your sign all month, and we have talked about Mars in previous horoscope videos, but Mars actually goes into shadow this month on the 5th in your sign. And actually, funnily enough, whenever I was recording some of these voiceovers first thing this morning, and I went straight from Gemini to Leo and forgot yours. So you're getting a more awake version of me, which is great, but I thought, why on earth did I forget Cancers? And then I thought about the shadow period, and I thought, oh, maybe some of you are kind of wanting to, you know, with Mars being in Cancer, the energy is a little bit sideways. Maybe some of you are wanting to retreat, maybe some of you are wanting to take cover, take shelter, and you're not so comfortable being seen this month. I will say, with Mars going into shadow, make sure that you are balancing your time to the point that you're getting adequate sleep, adequate rest, and that you are looking after yourself well. You know, nourishing yourself well, just because when Mars is in your 1st house, and also particularly when it's in shadow, it can be a time where if you push too much, you may, you know, strain yourself or something like that. So it's just that, you know, say for example, you're feeling really tired and you go for a run and you fall over, and I'm using that as an example because Mars is in fall in Cancer, so you could literally fall over, but I'm just giving you the example of how it's important this month not to push too hard. We are in eclipse season as well, and it's just that the reason being is that if Mars is going to cover this ground later on, you know, in January or so, January, February, it's important that you don't push too hard to the fact you have an injury, because it can be prolonged with a Mars retrograde cycle. So just be mindful of that. Do make sure that you are taking care of your energy and taking care of your physical body. Sometimes Mars in the first house gives us more energy, but it tends to be the sort that we overdo it because we overexert ourselves, or we feel this surge and we just take it too far sometimes. So just make sure that you're measuring that. The new moon solar eclipse for you, Cancer, is happening in your 4th house, and this can bring about a new chapter when it comes to your home and your family. For a lot of you, it could be to do with your children, because the ruler of this eclipse is in the 5th house, and that could mean that there's a new chapter happening in your house, in your home, when it pertains to your child. Or it could be that maybe in your home, say for example, you're creating a new room, you're renovating, you're redecorating. You could be doing it from the lens of, I want this to be a fun place to hang out. I want to have parties in here. I want to have a bar in here, or something like that. You're wanting to have a place where you can perhaps, you know, do the things that you like to do, that you find fun, whether that be starting a home gym, or as I say, a home bar or an art studio. It feels like a lot of you could be renovating, doing up a room, redecorating, or something like that, Cancer. Or there could be a new beginning happening just with your home, with your inhabitants. You know, maybe someone's moving out, someone's moving in, you're moving, you're redecorating. Maybe with Mercury there, you're getting a contractor, you're employing someone to do work in your house or something like that. Jupiter is going to go retrograde in your 12th house from the 9th. Now this happens 4 months of the year. It is not a big deal to have a Jupiter retrograde, but in the 12th house, this is a great time to really get quite reflective on all the healing that you've been doing behind the scenes, the inner work, the navel gazing, philosophizing what it is that you want to let go of, what it is that you want to release, what no longer works for you. You know, with Jupiter going through the 12th, it can be a really great time to get the sort of knowledge and the sort of information that helps you let things go, or helps you make changes, or helps you shed an old way of living. It's a place of endings, but Jupiter does equip us with information and knowledge. And knowledge is power. So for a lot of you, it could be a case that you're doing some reflection and you're getting the sort of information, or you're learning new things, or you're sort of bringing what you've learned over the last few months into your process of endings and beginnings. I do think a lot of you could be learning a little bit more about, you know, the unconscious mind, and a lot of you could be studying something quite privately behind the scenes you're not ready to bring forward just yet. Your dreams, because this is the 12th house, may also be quite vivid around the 9th, and they might teach you something as well, Cancer. Pluto goes direct in your 7th house and the 11th. This is quite an important day for all of us collectively, because it is going to be the final forward momentum of Pluto and Capricorn. For you, it's your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, clients, one-on-one relationships and relationship dynamics. And it can also be to do with legal affairs. So for a lot of you, this could be a time where perhaps there are secrets or information coming out about a particular person in your life. It could be a spouse, but it could also be someone that you're in business with, someone that you have a very close relationship with. It could also be a time when you're ending an important contract or a long-standing contract in your life. It could be a time that you're ending a legal matter. It could be a time where you're ending one-on-one relationship. And it could also be a time when you're realizing what someone actually thinks of you, like what they're projecting onto you. And that might be something that changes your perspective or your viewpoint on the person that you were relating to, you were in a relationship with. So an important relationship in your life could end, or you could learn something quite important about a relationship in your life. Now we have a lot of activity happening in your 4th house, particularly up until the 22nd because the sun is there. This is really shining a spotlight on your home and your family. You'll maybe want to spend more time with your family, more time at home, working on the home. Your focus, Cancer, is on the home, and probably also your finances are very focused on the home. You may have a few things to shell out for, pardon the Cancerian pun. You may have some things to pay for, to buy, to purchase for your home. You might have to get your checkbook out, Cancer, because the sun does rule your 2nd house. It does move into your 3rd house on the 22nd. And this is a great time to get together with your neighbours, to get together with your siblings, to spend time being active in the community. And Venus is there until the 17th, which also works really well for relationships with neighbours, with siblings, with your local community, getting more involved in your local community, having interesting discussions in your local community, and really getting on better with the people that share your neighbourhood. Your activities that you do on a day-to-day basis come under this as well. So it can be quite a nice time this month socially. It may also be a time when you're having people over, Cancer. We do have a full moon in your 10th house on the 17th. So it's conjunct Chiron, and this is really bringing to the fore an emotional healing process when it comes to your career. Now, this could be that for a lot of you, if you're in a healing profession, if you're in some sort of healing industry, maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're a nurse, maybe you're a Reiki healer, maybe you're a therapist, whatever the case may be, you might be having a peak moment if that is your profession. So you could be getting some acknowledgement, some recognition. You could be in the spotlight for your career. A lot of you could actually be very visible at this time career-wise. You could also realize some pain that you have around leadership, around your job, around your career, and you could be processing some rather painful emotions or acknowledging some insecurity within yourself about your career if you have it. Maybe some imposter syndrome or something like that. But it can also be a really wonderful time for you, Cancer, to realize where you're getting in your own way, where you limit yourself. It's square Mars in your 1st house, where you are maybe avoiding the spotlight or avoiding leadership, not because you don't think you're capable, but because you're just nervous in case you're not. Or maybe there's a promotion up and you just think, well, maybe I don't think I should go for that. It's you don't have to. It's just maybe a moment where you could check in and see, am I avoiding this, or do I have some avoidant tendencies in my career or with a goal that I really want to achieve, even if it's nothing to do with your professional life. It just seems that maybe it could be something that would put you in the spotlight or change your reputation. It could be a fear of being seen for some of you. But whatever the case may be, Cancer, it gives you a chance to really look into how comfortable you are being visible, how comfortable you are in a position of power, and it could also bring an opportunity for some healing surrounding career matters generally. It is in a sextile to Jupiter in your 12th house, so it does feel like whatever you've been studying behind the scenes, the wisdom that you've been accumulating, the healing work that you've been doing, it feels like it supports your career changes if you're making them. This could be a time when you get a promotion. This could be a time when you leave a job, you're leaving a particular role, or maybe just even if nothing's changing literally outside of you, it's the internal process of having some realizations about what you want career-wise, what you want goal-wise, or what it is that you want to achieve in this lifetime, Cancer. So that is what I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to October. I hope you're doing really well. So Leo, I'm going to start with the solar eclipse because I'm going with what affects you the most in my opinion this month, and because it is a solar eclipse and you're ruled by the sun, you tend to feel the energy that little bit more, and that doesn't have to be because of a huge life-changing event. Eclipses can come and go and have a relatively subtle or small impact, believe it or not, if they don't directly impact your chart. But because it's a solar eclipse, even if it is subtle, it may be something that you're feeling physically. You could feel a bit lethargic, your sleep could be a bit strange, you could feel a little bit anxious or a little bit off. So around the time of the solar eclipse, just take it easy, is what I would say to you, especially with the sun being, fallen in Libra. You may just not be feeling as energetic. You might just not be feeling as, you might just not feel yourself, Leo, and that's okay. You can't be on form all the time. So if you are feeling that way, just take it easy. But the solar eclipse is happening in your 3rd house. So this does bring your attention to your siblings or your neighbours or your car, your transportation. Some of you could be getting a new phone. Some of you could be getting a new car under this eclipse. The effects of the eclipse last 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, but can actually last up to 6 months, believe it or not. So you may be finding that you're already aware of these changes, but it could be a new car, it could be a new phone, it could be a new gadget, it could be a new beginning in the life of a sibling, Leo, for sure, because the ruler of this eclipse is in your 4th house. So there could be a new beginning happening with a sibling. Maybe they're buying a home, starting a family. Maybe they have something that they need to tell you, need to share with you. But it could also be, Leo, that whatever is being shared, you feel a bit nervous about it. It's in a square to Mars in your 12th. Maybe around the time of this eclipse, you're feeling a bit anxious, you're feeling a bit down, or maybe looking a little bit more on the pessimistic side of life with your ruler in fall and a square to a fallen Mars. Maybe you're just feeling a bit, it's harder to rustle up the enthusiasm. For some of you, it could be a new writing project, or it could be a new communication or a significant communication around this time pertaining to home matters, property matters, or family matters that you are a little nervous about, but I also feel like you see potential in it. You see the excitement down the line with the grand water trine. Leo, Jupiter's going to go retrograde in your 9th house. Lovely time. Your 9th house, your 12th house on the 9th. Apologies, because I've got the 9th house. I've got the 9th and then 11th on top of each other, because Jupiter retrograde is on the 9th, Pluto direct is on the 11th, but Jupiter is going retrograde in your 11th house. And this is going to be a really nice time to catch up with friends, to reconnect with some friends you've not seen in a while. You're maybe seeing friends that you know from traveling or from different countries, with it being Jupiter, to reconnect with some people you haven't seen, or reconnect with some groups of people, catch up with some familiar faces that you've not seen in a while, reconnect with social groups that you used to frequent, reconnect with groups of people that you used to spend time with. They could be spiritual with Jupiter, they could be foreign with Jupiter, they could be from university, college, that type of thing. But it's really about reconnecting with different people that you've not seen in quite a while. Leo, we also have Pluto going direct in Capricorn on the 11th. So this is going to be happening in your 6th house, and I will say, with it being at the crisis degree and it being direct, you're probably going to be thinking more, for whatever reason, about your health, and you're going to be making some changes. So, say something has changed with you health-wise since 2008, which is entirely possible with Pluto being there, or there's been a crisis, or there's been a significant change for you physically, or even mentally. Whatever the case may be for you, Leo, it'll be different for everyone, but I think you're probably going to be really focused on making some sort of significant change when it comes to your health, your routines, your body, and you may also be making a big change when it comes to your job or the roles that you play, the services that you provide, or what your work situation is right now. It could be changing before November. Mercury is going to be in your 3rd house until the 13th, giving you the gift of the gab, making you very apt at communicating, of arguing your point, articulating your opinions. But Mercury enters Scorpio on the 13th, which is going to be a time when you're talking more to your family, or there's more communication about property matters, home matters. You're thinking more about the home, you're thinking more about your family. It starts to take your attention a little bit more as we proceed to the end of the month, especially when the Sun enters Scorpio on the 22nd. You may become more of a homebody. Your attention is shifting towards home matters, property matters, and family matters. So you're sort of shifting from a rather social beginning of the month, where there's a lot of conversations, there's a lot of talking to different people in your neighborhood, your neighbors. You could be getting new neighbors this month as well, Leo, but it could be that you're feeling a little bit more chatty, a little bit more extroverted, and then as we proceed to the end of the month, you're feeling a little bit more introverted and sort of wanting to spend a little more time at home or with your family. There's a full moon in Aries on the 17th, and this is happening in your 9th house, and it's in a conjunction to Chiron. So this full moon for you Leo is saying, it's talking to you about travel plans. It's talking to you about where you want to travel to next. Maybe you're thinking of traveling somewhere that you can heal, or you're going there for something healing. Maybe you are a healer and you're traveling to a different country to partake in some sort of workshop or event. With Chiron being there, maybe some of you are, if you're doctors, you know, you're going on your secondment somewhere. It could be that you're traveling for healing purposes, as I say, or to heal others or to be healed. But it could also just be that you're finding that a travel experience you have is kind of healing for whatever reason. It just feels like you needed it at the time. It can also be that you're learning about healing, with this being the 9th house of education and Chiron being conjunction the full moon. You could be learning more about healing, spirituality. You could be studying it a little bit more. The square to Mars in your 12th, it does feel like you're a little bit anxious or a bit nervous or a bit fearful of whatever's happening around the time of this full moon. And to be honest with you, Leo, Mars is going to be in Cancer all month. I feel as though you may well be a bit, when it comes to mood, you could have fears you don't understand. You could feel a bit fearful, a bit down, a bit anxious, sometimes wanting to isolate as well. You might actually be planning a solo trip for yourself, or wanting some time to travel alone, or just study or reflect on something you're interested in as well. Or you could be taking a sabbatical for some of you. But with Mars being in shadow from the 5th, I feel like a lot of you are going to be, you know, focusing on how it's quite spiritual for you. It's sort of focusing on your own spiritual journey and really looking inward at how far that you've come, or what your next steps are, what it is that you want to learn, what it is that you feel you've not learned, or your connection to knowledge could be a little insecure at times, but it's going to be one that really does actually spur you on to grow more. I mean, this full moon is in a sextile to Jupiter in your 11th house, so it feels like maybe some of you that are traveling actually have a bunch of people or a group of people that you're going with, or you meet there that you really connect with and you really learn from, or you have a really positive karmic experience with that makes you feel a little bit more joyful, a little bit more expansive, Leo. Venus enters your 5th house from the 17th, and this is a really beautiful time for dating, romance, whether that is that you're coupled or single. If you're coupled, you and your partner might go on more dates, more adventures together, and if you're single, you may find that it's easier to attract love into your life if that's what you're looking for, Leo. But that is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Virgo, welcome to October. Hope you're having a great month so far. So Virgo, this month puts a lot of focus onto your finances. There's a new moon solar eclipse in your 2nd house on the 2nd, and this brings about new beginnings for you financially. Now that's for the most part. The 2nd house does have more to it than money, but I just want to have a little bit of look at the financial side of things for you, because it feels as though with this eclipse you may be perhaps beginning a new chapter financially. Now, quite commonly, eclipses in the 2nd, particularly solar eclipse, can coincide with unexpected new opportunities to make money. So that could be through other avenues, such as a promotion, or that could be through an investor, or that could be through, you know, your side hustle taking off, or whatever it is that you do for money, Virgo. This is the money that you earn. Now, the reason that it could absolutely be through a promotion or something of that nature is because we do have Jupiter going through your 10th house. It's bringing you a lot of exposure and a lot of visibility, and you're more of a magnet for blessings with Jupiter in the 10th house when it comes to your career, your professional life. Sometimes it can coincide with a bit of fame for some people. So obviously it depends on your natal chart, but this may be a time where you're perhaps coming into some new way of making money, new opportunities to make money, or at the very least for some of you, you could simply be starting a new bank account that has a better savings interest or something like that with this new moon. Now, the ruler of this new moon, of this solar eclipse, is Venus in Scorpio, Virgo, and that is your 3rd house. So it feels as though if you have a new financial beginning, or you have a new way of making money, it may actually be coming for a lot of you through social media. It could be coming from putting your work online. It could be coming from putting your services online. It could be coming from digital technical skills, making money on your phone, making money on your laptop, or something like that, with Venus being in the 3rd house. It could also be opportunities coming to you from neighbors, from siblings, and people of that nature. People from your local community, people that you know from school, maybe people that you know from your early life, your early years. And at the very least, for some of you, the 3rd house, especially with Venus being in Scorpio, is very witchy. So some of you might actually be manifesting money or making money through something kind of witchy for a select few of you. But nevertheless, Virgo, there is a square to Mars in your 11th house. And Mars is actually going into shadow this month in your 11th house as well. This can be a really nice time to reconnect with old friends. You might be hearing from old friends from the past. You might be, perhaps, if you're having any confrontation or issues with friends, when Mars goes into shadow, you might be really thinking about friends you've maybe lost touch with, had conflict with, or maybe thinking, was that a bit passive aggressive? Could that have been handled a bit more directly? Anything, and I would say watch this month for anything that comes up, argument or agitation wise, with friends, with groups of people, with teams, because from the 5th, there's a very strong chance that this will repeat going into 2025. So do pay attention if there's any arguments in the groups that you're a part of, any tensions, because this could be part of a longer storyline. And with the tension from Mars to the solar eclipse and to Mercury, it could be that perhaps there are some arguments in a group or a team about financial matters, money matters, or values. Now, we have the solar eclipse in your 2nd house. We have Mercury there until the 13th. There's a big focus on finances, yes, but it can also be to do with values. It can be to do with morals and what really matters to you. Virgo, you could be sort of rethinking what it is that you need from life, what it is that you need to survive, what it is that you need to be happy, what really matters to you. But it is a good time to really look at the books financially and track your financial habits, and maybe decide if you want to start something new that could make you more money later on, to be comfortable or to facilitate the needs that you're figuring out for yourself financially. There could be a bit of reprioritizing when it comes to what you spend your money on. Now, Jupiter does go retrograde in your 10th house in the 9th. So, Jupiter retrograde, 4 months of the year, it's very much a time where we make our own luck when it comes to the house it is transiting. So for you, this is very professional. It's a very expansive time in your career. Some of you could have found yourself in positions with more power, more authority. You could have started your own business. You could have got a new boss. You could answer to a new authority figure. Some of this could be quite global with it being Jupiter, or have links to foreign lands and things like that. Or it could be something that you're really learning a lot from and you're gaining a lot of wisdom from as well. The retrograde is going to make you very reflective on the changes that have been coming up for you career-wise, on the changes that have been happening for you when it comes to your job, your professional life, and your goals. And you could be rethinking your long-term strategy. Maybe reflecting on what else you'd like to do, what you could change, or it's a good time to check in and see if things aren't going the way that you want them to in career. What knowledge do you need? What could you learn? What lessons that you have learned already could you begin to implement a little bit more, or apply a little bit more to whatever the situation is? I'm more than aware that Jupiter in your 10th house does have 2 different occasions of squaring Saturn in your 7th house of partnerships. So as much as you can have this career expansion, these opportunities and these positions of power or more visibility, which doesn't always, it's in Gemini energy, it can always be that you have great visibility on one hand, but you don't want it so much with the other. With Jupiter in Gemini, it is in detriment in Gemini. I'm more aware of the squares to Saturn in your 7th house, where there can be tricky one-on-one relationships in your career, tricky business partnerships, tricky business client relationships, and just some one-on-one dynamics can be quite challenging and frustrating at times for you, Virgo. But I do think that this Jupiter retrograde is a really good time to reflect on your professional achievements thus far. maybe have a bit of gratitude to yourself for them, or a bit of gratitude for them. But I also think it's a really good time to reflect on what it is that you want out of that area in general. You know, because it's the 10th house, and Jupiter going through the 10th house is a really big time. But I do know that we kind of have a tendency with Jupiter to only see the good side, and Gemini energy is always a bit of a double-edged sword. So it can bring, you know, on one hand, recognition, it can bring more visibility, and on the other hand, that visibility can sometimes show things that you don't want or you didn't want, you know. So great time to reflect on your career and your achievements and what it is that you want to change. And with Jupiter, the key is always knowledge. So whether that's something you've learned or something that you are going to learn, Virgo, it's important to use that. We do have quite a lot of activity happening this month in your 2nd house, yes, but also the 3rd. Mercury enters your 3rd house in the 13th. Mercury is, of course, your ruling planet. So you may find yourself more chatty, you may find yourself more communicative, more active online, more active in social media, more active in your local community or your local neighbourhood. And the sun enters that sector on the 22nd, so it's a really good time to get out with the neighbours, get out with your siblings, get out with your local community, take a road trip, get out in the car, go explore, go look for something that can really feed your mind, because it might be a little bit more active in the second part of the month where you're wanting more information, you're more interested in different podcasts, books, writing, or you may be more interested in doing these things. I feel for a lot of you this could actually be a good month if you are looking to put your services online to do so. We have a full moon in Aries coming up on the 17th, and this is in your 8th house of other people's money. So this is a full moon, Virgo, where you may come into some money from somebody else. Maybe your partner gets a pay rise. Maybe you get a payout from a business partner. Maybe you get an inheritance. Maybe you get a tax rebate. This is entirely possible because it is in a sextile to Jupiter, which will be in retrograde. So it's possible that maybe some money is coming back to you, some money is coming your way. Virgo, with the full moon being in Aries in the 8th, the other way that this could play out for you is that, especially with the conjunction to Chiron, you could actually be acknowledging or feeling your way through some emotional baggage. It takes so much whenever I say emotional baggage in the 8th house to not do that song that's, I think it was famous on TikTok or something, where it's where they go emotional damage. Reminds me so much of that when I say emotional baggage. It can be a time, not to make levy of the situation, but it can be a time when you're maybe processing some tougher emotions with a full moon in the 8th house, and maybe some quite raw ones, quite vulnerable ones. Make some time to sit with your feelings with the full moon in the 8th. Make some time to validate your own feelings, your own experiences. And, you know, whether you view them as big or small, make some time for your emotions to let them pass. Because I think there's something about how if a feeling actually moves through your body quite quickly if you let it, but it's when we ignore it and shove it down that it can actually end up taking years to process, or it can stay there for years, more so than it takes years to process. I didn't phrase that right. It can stay there for years. So just make some time if you have, an emotional moment, to allow yourself to feel your feelings, and to allow yourself maybe to process a loss in your life or a frustration in your life, or something. I think for a lot of people with Aries, something that made you angry, and the 8th house is the house of grief. So you might have some residual anger surrounding grief from the past or from recently, or whatever the case may be, Virgo. But just remember, with the North Node going through your 8th, you're being encouraged to not only merge with other people on a more intimate level to share your feelings, you're also being encouraged to allow other people to help you with the 8th house. So if you are feeling a certain kind of way, don't shut yourself off from others, is what I'm trying to say with this. And I think the sextile to Jupiter in your 10th house is making me think that on one hand there could be kind of some there could be kind of some stuff from the past that is stopping you from being more visible, or maybe going after a goal that you really want to do. And I think with the 8th house, a lot of the time it's fear. You know, with all of us, I think when we have a big goal, a lot of the time the only thing that stops us going after it is fear. So you may actually find with this full moon in Aries that you are going to feel the fear and do it anyway, with a goal that you really want to achieve. Venus enters your 4th house on the 17th, and this will be, going forward, a really nice time to connect with your family, to go to social events that are linked to your family. There may be more family occasions happening. It may be that you're also decorating your home or beautifying your home, Virgo. You may be decorating it for Halloween or something like that. But with Venus being in Sagittarius, it feels as though you may be really getting into beautifying your space and making it a pleasant place to be. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Libra, welcome to October, and a very, very happy birthday to all the Libras celebrating in October. I hope you have a wonderful solar return. Whether you like it or not, Libra, you are more in the spotlight this month, because we do have a solar eclipse in your sign, and you may be relieved or not, I don't know, to know that this is the final eclipse in your sign for quite a number of years. The South Node is going to remain there until January of 2025. And I will say, I do feel a lot of Libras that I have witnessed, they have been letting go of past versions of themselves in order to step into a very new life cycle. You know, some have got significant promotions, some have become pregnant and they're becoming parents for the first time. Some have divorced, some have been navigating health challenges. But whatever the case may be, it boggles my mind always to see how gracefully Libras handle things. So kudos to you, but this is a new beginning. This part of the eclipse cycle, it's a new beginning for you. I feel like a lot of you are going to be investing in yourself. So the ruler of this eclipse is Venus. It's in your 2nd house of money, finances, financial affairs, and also self-worth, self-confidence. I feel like a lot of people that have Libra rising in particular are going to be investing in themselves, you know, maybe purchasing some new clothes, makeup, skincare, anything aesthetic that is going to enhance your appearance, because maybe, you know, maybe some of you are stepping into a new job and you need new suits, or you need new uniform, or you need or you want to look a certain way doing this new role, or, you know, maybe you're investing in your self-care, or whatever the case may be. Libra, it feels like this is a new beginning, a new chapter for you, and you're wanting to approach life a little bit differently. You're more focused on what matters to you with Venus in the 2nd, and very focused with all that South Node shedding, very focused on being true to yourself, and maybe letting go of some people-pleasing tendencies here and there, or maybe letting go of constantly having to accommodate someone else over you. You know, it's okay to say no for your well-being at times, Libra. So it might be that. I do think with the conjunction to Mercury, which has a square to Mars in your 10th house, it's entirely possible that some people could be irritating you at work early on in the month around the time of this eclipse. People could be quite irritating or irritated. There could be a little bit of heated confrontation around the time of the eclipse, around the 2nd, around the 3rd. You could be finding yourself quite frustrated with someone else or them with you in a work capacity. Libra. The Jupiter retrograde cycle that begins in the 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde in a sign every year for 4 months. It's going retrograde in your 9th house. And with Jupiter going retrograde in your 9th house, I feel like for a lot of you, you could be reflecting on your travel experiences. Maybe some of you could be returning to somewhere that you used to live, somewhere you used to travel to. Some of you could be catching up with people you went to university with, or some of you could be going into study periods at your university or your college. Some of you could be wrapping up a cycle when it comes to higher education. Or some of you might just be, say you're wanting to get a book published or something like that. You could be using this period to reread it, reflect on it, rethink it. Retrogrades are all about looking over things or reconnecting. So as I say, you might run into people you went to university with, people you traveled with, people that live, abroad. You could be traveling to see people you haven't seen in a while, or you used to live with. But I do think a lot of you could be going back somewhere that you've been before, or catching up with people that you either studied with or traveled with in the past. At this period, Pluto is going direct in Capricorn in your 4th house, and it's going retrograde on the 11th. This is the final stint, and at the crisis degree, it doesn't have to foretell a crisis per se. Pluto has been hovering over this degree for about a year and will finally leave your 4th house in November. This could bring about some changes when it comes to home and family. These might be quite necessary, they might be quite urgent. So maybe you really think, we have to get out of this house, we have to move, or there could be big changes in that a child is going off to university, someone's leaving the house, or like a roommate that you've had for years is leaving, or there's some significant changes happening in your home, happening in your family, happening with a family member. With Pluto now being direct in Capricorn. And maybe some of you have been dealing with crisis with a family member, and this feels like a time where you are, with Pluto tends to ask us to focus on what we really need to change, the changes we need to make, and where we can take back our power, so to speak, or where we find our power with Pluto there. So for you, Libra, it does feel like it could bring about some family changes or home changes for you. There's a full moon in Aries on the 17th, and it's in a conjunction to Chiron. And this is in your 7th house of relationships. Now, it's in a square to Mars in your 10th, but it is in a sextile to Jupiter in your 9th. What's interesting is at the time of this full moon, your ruler Venus is at the crisis degree of its fallen sign, or its detriment sign, Scorpio. So I feel like for a lot of you, there could be something comes up with a partnership that may be a little painful. So it could be that something comes to light. Maybe your partner has been having money issues with Venus being in the 2nd, or maybe you have a fight about money, or maybe some wounding comes up in a partnership or a relationship with Chiron being there. Whatever comes up under the full moon in Aries, it's coming up to be felt, it's coming up to be healed and understood. So it could be that your partner is just sharing some of their pains or their insecurities with you. It could be that they're feeling upset about something in their life. It could also be that you're feeling a certain way about partnerships. Maybe you're noticing some insecurities within a relationship, or some pain about relationship patterning. Maybe you're more focused on healing your attachment style. Chiron is the asteroid of healing. So you could be working on something in a relationship dynamic where you really want to sort it out, you really want to fix it. Libras tend to be very accommodating with relationships. So it might be a case where your partner is sharing some vulnerabilities and you're trying to figure out how to navigate those in the relationship. Or you could be dealing with your own pain surrounding relationship patterning. It could be quite an emotional full moon, but full moons do tend to bring whatever lies beneath to the surface. So if there are feelings to come out, they're not new. They've been there for a while, and the psyche is wanting to be heard. The feelings are wanting to be felt. This is quite an emotional one for everybody with Chiron and the square to Mars. And you could also be finding that perhaps there's some mirroring going on where one person in your life is projecting onto you, or you realize that you've been projecting onto them. The sextile to Jupiter in the 9th makes me feel like you can really learn a lot from this. You can get a lot of information, you can get a lot of wisdom. You might find that you're learning something you didn't know before, and it's helping you heal. So it's the best way that I can say it. It's helping you heal. You could also be healing through a new relationship in your life, healing through a partnership. It could feel like you're being, it could feel like you're healing some wounding through a relationship. I will say the square to Mars just makes me think that perhaps, initially at least, people could be a little bit more defensive than usual, a little bit more self-protective. But there is, a sense of needing to work on relationship issues around the time of this full moon. And that doesn't have to be romantic, by the way. It can actually be a business dynamic. It can be a client relationship. It can be in a legal affair. Maybe for some of you, you are, you know, there could be something coming up if you're involved in a lawsuit surrounding personal injury with Chiron. It could be something like that. Obviously, you would know at this point if that's the case. I'm just giving examples so you kind of know the different themes and archetypes that are playing out. But this full moon does seem to be a time of healing for you. There will be a video up on that later though. Venus enters Sagittarius on the 17th, Libra. And this is a pretty social one for you. You might want to be more involved in your local neighborhood. You might get more invitations to see the neighbors, to see your siblings, to socialize with people in your local community. There may be more community events going on at this time. Big focuses on your finances from the 22nd. You're more interested in your money. You're more motivated by money, and you're more thinking about your financial future when the sun enters Scorpio. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Scorpio, welcome to October, and a very, very happy birthday to all the Scorpios celebrating their birthday this month. I hope you have a wonderful year ahead. So Scorpio, I'm going to talk about your ruling planets, your traditional and ruling planet. I'm going to start with Mars. Mars is fallen in Cancer. It's entering the shadow period in the 5th, and it's squaring off with not only the solar eclipse in your 12th house, but also the full moon in your 6th. Go easy this month. It may feel as though you're running a little flat on energy, particularly because the sun is going to be in your 12th house until the 22nd. You may need a little bit more rest. You may need a little bit more downtime. Your sleep may be a bit more disrupted than usual. And you may be feeling a little bit off and not know why. Or, you know, you're very strong investigative skills. You might know why. But a lot of you could be, with so much happening in the 12th house this month, the sun's there until the 22nd, we have a solar eclipse there, conjunct the south node, Mercury is there. You could be feeling a little bit emotionally up and down, and you might feel a need to isolate yourself. You could be dealing with some tough emotions from the past. You could be processing some pain from the past. You could be doing some intense inner healing. You could be perhaps dealing with a lot of secrets coming to the surface, a lot of secrets coming out, whether they be yours or whether they be that of perhaps a hidden enemy in your life. I will say, oftentimes, Scorpio, the hidden enemy is usually something within us, you know, a pattern, a belief, a narrative, a behavior, something within us that we hand our power away to. And it could be a self-sabotaging coping mechanism. You know, you could be doing a lot of inner work and you could be having some very significant realizations, but that's not always easy. You know, you're definitely a sign that revels in transformation, and you can really go down into the depths in a way that other signs can't. But it doesn't mean that you have to do it all alone. You know, this solar eclipse is coming up in your 12th house. The ruler of this eclipse is in your sign. So I think a lot of you are maybe dealing with stuff beneath the surface, or dealing with things privately or out of view from other people. You're really wanting to heal. You're really wanting to go inward. You're really wanting to, I guess, take care of yourself. But I think the point that I'm making is that, you know, don't isolate yourself too much, because you know, that can't be good for you either, Scorpio. So with all this happening in the 12th house with an eclipse, the squares to Mars, you could really be wanting to, it might just feel easier to go inward and shut everybody off, but it might not be the answer here. I do feel a lot of you are going through a very profound healing period, and I think there could be stuff that you're dealing with that you haven't been able to deal with before. You could really be with the south node in the 12th, clearing out that you know, I remember someone once referred to the 12th house as the emotional dustbin of the zodiac. And every time I have 12th house, I think I've had 12th house transits for most of my life at this point, being a Pisces rising, but every time I read about them, I just think about how it's kind of like taking out the trash emotionally, or, you know, emptying a bucket full of water. It can be very emotional. It can be a very significant catharsis in our life. And also, if that wasn't enough, the Mars squares and Mars in shadow and the 12th house activity, Pluto, your modern ruler, is going direct at the crisis degree. So that bit for you feels like you're kind of coming back online with Pluto going direct, and you're ready to make changes. You're ready to make changes, particularly when it comes to communication, when it comes to your mindset. You may decide that you have a declaration to make, a statement to put out, something to say, something to tell someone, maybe even a secret that you have to share with somebody else. But it feels like you're understanding your power when it comes to your words, you're understanding your power when it comes to how you communicate. And I think a lot of you are wanting to communicate something for yourself, because Pluto's in the 3rd house. It can also be that you're making changes in your life when it comes to your relationship to siblings, to neighbours, to your community. It may be a case that there's changes happening in these areas, or you may be making these changes, Scorpio. But I think the most significant thing that you guys are changing is your mindset. It feels like you're clearing out a lot of stuff this month. You might actually be going through a literal clearing out. You could be getting rid of clutter. You could be getting rid of things that you own, things that you possess that no longer serve you. I feel like a lot of you could also be beginning a project behind the scenes, very personal to you, but I feel like it may be rooted in self-love and self-acceptance, whether this is a healing journey, a healing process, whatever the case may be this month, Scorpio. Jupiter is going retrograde in your 8th house, and Jupiter goes retrograde for 4 months of a year. This is a really good time to reflect on what it is that you've learned when it comes to intimate relationships, when it comes to connecting with other people on a vulnerable level, but also maybe reflecting on how you've benefited from someone else financially, or reflecting on how you've benefited from somebody else in terms of property or anything like that. What you've been receiving from others, maybe that's a spouse, partner, government. You may be reflecting on that. You could have learned something from it, or you may be deciding that you want to maybe reconsider some changes that have gone on there, or you're just reflecting on that change. Scorpio, it may also be a time when you're needing to make your own luck. So when it comes to joint property matters, joint financial matters, receiving money from other people, maybe you're having to communicate a little bit more, maybe you're having to put in a little bit more effort into the dynamic, potentially with Jupiter going retrograde in this sector. But it does feel like you could be, Jupiter's the benefic. It does tend to bring some sort of value from other people towards us. But with the retrograde energy, you're reflecting on how that works for you, or how that works for somebody else as well. It can also be that you're getting a lot of knowledge when it comes to, perhaps, as I say, the psychological, the spiritual, the emotional, and you're reflecting on how you want to use that knowledge, or how you're going to apply it with the retrograde cycle. As I said before, we have a lot happening in your 12th house. We do have a full moon in your 6th house that is in a square to Mars, as I've mentioned before, but it is also conjunct Chiron, and it is sextiling Jupiter in the 8th. Now, this full moon is happening in your 6th house. So this is a great time, full moon in the 6th, to check in on your health, your healthy habits, your healthy routines, also your work and the role that you play in the services that you provide. The conjunction to Chiron can go a couple of different ways. It could be for some of you that you're dealing with some painful wounding surrounding health, surrounding your work, surrounding your relationship to your colleagues. They could be hurting your feelings, or you could be hurting their feelings. It could be a case that maybe some of you have a wound that you're focusing on healing at the moment. It could be, literal. Maybe you've broken an arm or something like that, or you're having to take care of yourself. You're having to focus on your health because you've hurt yourself or something like that with the conjunction to Chiron. But it can also be that perhaps when it comes to the roles and services that you provide, Scorpio, maybe you're providing more healing services. Maybe you're becoming a Reiki healer. Maybe you are providing that kind of service, or maybe you're getting a sports massage. Maybe you're going to a Reiki healer. Maybe you're going to a specialist for your health. And I feel like if you are, you're probably encountering someone with a lot of knowledge. They could be having a bit of a knowledge flex, I will say, because while we have this lovely sextile to Jupiter in the 8th, so that's someone who has acquired a lot of knowledge. It can also be with the square to Mars in the 9th that this person's a bit of a know-it-all, or they're a bit defensive about what they know in the way that they communicate it. Or you could have maybe different, viewpoints about treating an injury or something like that for you, Scorpio. I do want to say, I feel like for a lot of you, it could be a sports massage with this being in Aries and it being the 6th house. It could also be that maybe you are going to, with the square to Mars, realize that you've been pushing it a bit far when it comes to a sport or activity that you do. And also do watch out for conversations surrounding foreign affairs, politics, religion in the workplace, because it might end up in a pretty significant argument. And if it does, it may last a bit longer than you'd hope. So I would be mindful of that. Less said, soonest mended. Obviously, with Mars being in shadow, themes that are coming up this month can repeat later on. Mars being in your 9th house means that you can have confrontation about foreign affairs, about religion, about education, about spiritual topics. So that can be a source of tension, Scorpio. And as I say, if there is a source of tension there and there are arguments, it can come up later with this being a shadow period. So just be mindful of that, because it can cause further trouble in your career or with your public image or reputation than you think it will, with Mars going into the 10th. Obviously you can do what you want, I'm just giving you the stars, but yeah, that full moon, I think a lot of you are probably going to be doing something like getting a sports massage or seeing a specialist when it comes to maybe a gym or sporting injury or issue. But when it comes to your health, I really feel like if there's something you're feeling physically around that time, Scorpio, please do not ignore it. Go get it checked. Go see someone who's very knowledgeable in what they do, because it's a really good time to look at it. When we have a full moon in the 6th house, if we're feeling something physically, we're more likely to get answers, and the full moon tends to exacerbate symptoms and bring them to the surface. So it is actually a really good time to get something checked or looked at under this full moon or this month in general. Venus is in your sign until the 17th, which means that you're looking your best. You're more attractive to gifts. You're more attractive to romance, to potential partners, to your partner. You have a certain glow, a certain mystery, and people might want to spoil you. People might want to give you gifts, buy you things. People might just be thinking of you and want to see you. You might be more well received than usual, Scorpio. So just enjoy that. Venus going through the 1st is usually very positive for people. So do enjoy that, especially if you're looking for love or you're just looking to maybe revamp your image or your aesthetic. It can bring a lot of luck. It can bring a lot of gifts with Venus being in your sign. So do enjoy that. Venus enters your 2nd house in the 17th, which is going to bless your finances. So it can make you a money magnet, and it can continue that energy of being more attractive to gifts and to nice things and finding things that you want to buy and that you really like and that you really enjoy, Scorpio. But with your 2nd house ruler retrograde, it's good to give it a bit more thinking time. Especially if you are joint to someone else financially at this time, Scorpio. The sun enters your sign on the 22nd, and you might find yourself more in the spotlight with a bit more energy, a bit more pep in your step. You might be feeling more like yourself. You might be more excited for your season. You might be more comfortable being seen. You're stepping back into the world. You're more online. You're just more there, and you're feeling more like yourself after maybe a period of introspection, a bit more sleep, and a need to recharge. That's what I have for you, Scorpio, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your October horoscope. Hope you're all doing really well. So Sagittarius, I want to talk about your ruling planet and your 1st house this month, first and foremost. So your ruling planet Jupiter is going to be going retrograde this month on the 9th. Now Jupiter is going to be going retrograde in your 7th house of relationships. So as a Sagittarius rising, you'll know that Jupiter goes retrograde for 4 months out of the year. It is not a rare occurrence. But as it is your ruling planet, it means that you're feeling particularly reflective on your beliefs, on your ideals, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to partnerships, when it comes to relating to other people generally, or it can also represent legal affairs. But I think with this Jupiter retrograde Sagittarius, particularly Sagittarius rising, you might be reflecting a little bit on relationships, whether they be relationships of the past or the present or even the future. So you may be perhaps, maybe the eclipse is drumming up some feelings about the past, about past relationships. Maybe for some of you, you're reflecting on your patterns or your types in relationships. Maybe some of you are thinking about people from the past, exes, old best friends. Maybe some of you are thinking about what it is, reflecting about what it is that you want from relationships, or what your responsibility is within your relationships. Because with Jupiter being your sign, you can be reflecting on you in relationships, what you bring to the table, what you want, what you need, what you do, and you're maybe reflecting on how you're helping yourself or how you're hindering yourself through the context of having a fulfilling relationship life. So as I say, when I say relationships, it's a bit broader than just a partner. So you might be reflecting on, maybe you had an old best friend you've not seen in a few years and you're thinking, I really miss them and I want to see them. You could be reconnecting with someone you've not seen in a while. Jupiter can bring an element of travel involved. So you could be traveling to see an old friend. You could be traveling to see an ex. You could be traveling somewhere you went before with a current partner. You could be reflecting on old issues within a relationship, or you could be reflecting on what would be best for you going forward with relationships. Some of you may have gotten into new significant relationships this year with Jupiter and Gemini, and you might be reflecting on how that's going and if it's going in the direction that you want it to go. Or for some of you that haven't and you want a partnership, you may be reflecting on what it is that you'd like and what it is that you'd need, and maybe any changes that you can make in your life to facilitate it, It could be something like that. Speaking of your energy, Venus is going to enter your sign on the 17th, and this is beautiful for attracting love. This is beautiful for attracting relationships or having a better time in your relationships with your partner, with your bestie, within legal affairs, whatever the case may be. Sagittarius, this can be a time when you're really looking and feeling your best. Venus going through your first house is a bit of a glow up energy, but it does make you more attractive to, gifts, to being spoiled, to attracting opportunities, to attracting money, to finding the right clothes, to finding the right aesthetic, whatever it is. It's great for you in an artistic and beauty perspective. So maybe you're just, being told, people are telling you how lovely you look or something like that. So it can really put you in this beautiful, attractive energy when Venus enters your sign on the 17th. So that's something to look forward to. And another big part of this month, aside from your ruler and from your first house, is that we do have a solar eclipse happening in Libra. Now, this is your 11th house. So with the South Node going through your 11th house, some of you could have since the summer of last year, or maybe winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, some of you could have stepped away from certain friendships, certain groups. Some of you could also have connected to people that are like soul family. This can bring a new friendship into your life, a new team into your life, a new group into your life, or sort of a new chapter when it comes to all of the above. So maybe you're joining a new team, maybe you are beginning a new project within a team. I do feel with Venus being in your 12th house, even if you're with a group of people, part of you may long for some privacy, or you may long to do something alone, or you may need a moment to be alone. It feels as though with Venus being in your 12th house, there's something secretive to this new beginning in a team or in a group. Or it may be that you're becoming part of a very healing or spiritual group. It could also be that perhaps either you're keeping secrets from the group or they're keeping secrets from you. But it feels more Sagittarius, like if you're in a new group or a new community, or you're surrounding yourself with people, there's kind of a spiritual healing component to it. And with Venus being in Scorpio, I feel like it's maybe, the emotions of release catching up with you or something like that. Or knowing that if you're going to be part of this group or this team or this friendship, that you need to let some past pain go is also a potential for that solar eclipse, but it does feel like a new beginning within a particular group. And with the sun there until the 22nd, I feel this month could really be quite social for you, and you could be spending time around a lot of people. But with Venus and Scorpio, if you do need a moment to yourself here and there, that's totally okay. Do take it if you're feeling a little bit emotionally overwhelmed or something with Scorpio being there. I do also think for you, Sagittarius, your needs and your values are changing. You know, Pluto is going direct in your second house. It's covering its final ground with the anaretic degree. I feel like when it comes to your finances or when it comes to your money, you seem to be wanting... Sorry, there's a bird singing really loudly at my window and it's dark. Go to bed. You could be really wanting to make changes when it comes to your finances, but I also think your values could be changing quite profoundly. Pluto does rule your 12th house, so this might be something that you weren't really conscious of before, but you're becoming increasingly aware of where you perhaps financially self-sabotage or where you're maybe losing money with the 12th house. If there's some sort of secret spending, or, you know, hopefully not, something behind the scenes where, you know, maybe for example, just as an obscure, quite small example, but if you go into your, say you have an Apple phone, you go into your subscriptions and you forget that you're still subscribed to something that you don't use, you know, you could be really cleaning out your finances and realizing where you were maybe losing some money here and there, or where you had some self-sabotaging habits, Sagittarius, or even some saboteurs, whatever reason that could manifest as with Pluto ruling the 12th. But I think for you, you're looking to take back some power financially, and you're also looking to own what really matters to you with Pluto going through Capricorn. But it can absolutely bring some financial changes between October and November before it goes back into Aquarius. Mercury is going to enter your 12th house on the 13th. Pay attention to your dreams. Best time to take a dream journal, to journal what it is that you're dreaming of, because when Mercury goes through the 12th, oftentimes our unconscious can become conscious through our dreams, and it can give us very clear messages with Mercury. You may even be having dreams of people who have passed over, dreams of people from the past in general. You could be having kind of psychic dreams as well with Mercury going through Scorpio. That's something that you could be experiencing as well. There's a full moon, Sagittarius, in Aries coming up for you, and this is your fifth house. And with this full moon being conjunct Chiron, some of you could be finding that some healing is going on when it comes to maybe your children and your relationship to your children. With a baby, it could be that, hopefully not, but one of your kids could be a bit under the weather at this time. Or it could be that perhaps they're going through some sort of emotional process, or you could be, you could be dealing with some emotions about your kids, about the concept of children. You could even be dealing with some emotions from past love affairs or romantic love affairs, any past pain that might be coming up with this being conjunct Chiron. With Chiron in the mix, it tends to bring about painful feelings, but a really profound opportunity to heal from them. So it can feel a little bit raw depending on how it's touching your chart. But you, of all the signs, could probably be processing any pain that you feel into your art, into your creativity artistically, is one way that you could be processing this with the full moon. And also how, if you're a creative person or you're in any kind of creative industry, how your identity is tied up in your creativity and where you're maybe experiencing some insecurities surrounding that. That could be an emotional process for you, Sagittarius. The sextile to Jupiter in your 7th, though, it feels like somebody is spurring you on. It feels like someone is championing you. Mercury's not retrograde, I have no excuse. Championing you. It could be that someone else has really got your back. It could be that perhaps a partner or a potential partnership is helping you heal some wounding pertaining to love, romance, and that kind of thing at this time as well. Or it could be that you meet someone who's maybe a bit of a healer, or maybe someone who's quite knowledgeable in a healing field of some sort, Sagittarius, if you're single. It can be a time when, if you're dating somebody, you're dating someone who is either, a wound mate or a soul mate, with that type of energy. But you could be seeing that in any kind of person. It doesn't have to be romantic. I do think for a lot of you that this full moon is going to bring up your feelings surrounding joy and feelings surrounding happiness, and maybe where you don't feel safe to express that. Some of you could absolutely be doing some inner child healing, and this in turn is going to help expand your relationship life and help you connect and grow through other people if you are doing inner child healing, Sagittarius. That's what I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Capricorn, welcome to your October horoscope. So Capricorn, there's a lot of focus for you this month in your 10th house. We have a solar eclipse occurring there. Mercury is going to be there until the 13th, and the Sun is going to be there until the 22nd. So essentially, Capricorn, there could be some new beginnings occurring for you professionally. And if it isn't professional, it could be to do with a long-term goal of yours that you wish to achieve. So the South Node going through your 10th house since July of 2023, you could have been leaving jobs, leaving roles, leaving positions of authority, stepping down, leaving a business, leaving a job. You could have been wanting to take a bit of time out of the spotlight if you are in the spotlight. Or it could have been that you maybe we're sort of letting go of long-term goals in favor of more short-term solutions, coping with whatever's going on at the time, and maybe putting a bit more focus on your home and your family at this time, Capricorn. But it can also bring about, with the letting go and releasing of old ways of working, old ways of performing, old ways of showing up to the world, you could actually be deciding that now is the time for a new beginning, based on maybe the skins that you've shed in terms of your professional life, or maybe the masks that you were wearing in your professional life that you've let go of, or past behaviors that don't work for you anymore. It feels as though you are beginning something new, and it could be a goal for you. It could be something that you want to work on, something you've always wanted to work on, something that maybe at one point you felt, I really want to do this, but time in life got in the way. For others of you, it could be simply that with this solar eclipse, you're starting a new job. With the South Node, you could be returning to an old job to start something new. You could be beginning a new professional chapter, maybe looking into a new industry, a new role, a new service, a new position. But it feels like for a lot of you, there could be something new, Capricorn, happening for you. And as I say, it could be a goal that really matters to you. Whatever the case may be, I feel like you're going to be pretty surrounded by people. I think this new role is kind of social. Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, is in your 11th house. So you may be socializing a lot, you might be networking a lot, you might be connecting with some powerful people. Venus and Scorpio answers to Pluto. And Pluto's also going direct in your sign this month. So I feel like for a lot of you, you may be finding yourself yet again in the spotlight, or yet again on a new professional venture, or embarking on a new goal, Capricorn. I will say, some of you might have a partner that is not happy about it, or the arrangement might not be so great for your relationship with the square to Mars, or it could be that there's at least one person work-wise that is a bit annoying or irritating when it comes to this new professional goal that you have, Capricorn. But I do feel overall this is a new beginning for you professionally, a new professional chapter. Now, I mentioned Pluto going direct in your sign. I can only imagine you're so tired of hearing about Pluto in your sign, and you kind of just want it to be over with. Pluto does exit your sign for good next month. But the direct motion on the 11th, pay attention on the 11th, because you may notice a profound inner shift. You may feel very differently about yourself, about your life. You may realize how much things have changed, how much you have changed. And if there are any changes that you want to achieve, Capricorn, you may also be moving toward those. You may have more understanding of what it is that you need to do, or what it is that you need to change. And maybe also what you need to address, or what you need to confess, with Pluto being there in your sign and going over the crisis degree. Kind of feels like if you're going to make a significant change, it feels very now or never. The anaretic degree can make things feel incredibly urgent. So for you, Capricorn, you may just feel like now is the time to make a change you've been waiting to make, or you feel is necessary. And if it's just simply taking stock of how much you've changed, how much you've grown, how powerful you've become, then take that moment. Jupiter also goes retrograde this month, and Jupiter retrograde, it happens 4 months out of the year every year, but it is a time of reflection when it comes to our beliefs. And for you, this is to do with your beliefs or your vision around health, around your well-being, but also around your work and the services that you provide. To be honest, with Jupiter going retrograde in your 6th and the South Node solar eclipse in your 10th, some of you could be returning to a job, or you could be reconnecting with people from old jobs, or you could just be taking inventory of your career and your professional life thus far and thinking, okay, I'm going to reflect on what it is that I need to do differently or what I want to change. Some of you could be catching up with people you used to work with. Some of you could be catching up with people you used to work out with, you used to go to the gym with. It can also be that some of you are picking up old habits when it comes to your health and your well-being that you have maybe just not been doing for a little while. They could be meditation, it could be prayer, with it being Jupiter. And the Gemini element of it is quite communicative. So you could be reassessing your beliefs around work and health as well, or you could be getting a second opinion on a health matter and looking for more knowledge and more answers with Jupiter going retrograde as well. Mercury is going to move from your 10th to your 11th on the 13th. This is a really particularly nice time from the 13th to the 17th to reconnect with friends and to spend time with friends and to go to social events with Mercury and Venus both in your 11th house, to connect to other people, to mingle with friends, to see friends, that type of thing. Venus enters your 12th house on the 17th, and from a social perspective, you might just want to keep it a bit smaller. You might just want to spend a bit more time alone, or you might want to spend time with your healing friends, your spiritual friends, your friends who feel like soul family. But I do think you might be more introverted from the 17th, wanting to spend more time alone with Venus going through your 12th. But it can be a lovely time for social circles that are spiritual in nature. And I also notice for you, Capricorn, that there's something coming up with your family on the 17th with the full moon in Aries. The full moon in Aries, it's in a conjunction to Chiron, a square to Mars, and a sextile to Jupiter. And the conjunction to Chiron is making this one feel, for everybody, a little bit painful, a little bit raw. There's a sense of activating what is unhealed within us. So for you, that can be to do with family, it can be to do with home, a living situation. It can be when your feelings sort of reach a peak, maybe when it comes to the past, or when it comes to home or family matters, and your identity within home and family matters, because it's Aries. You know, what role did you play? Were you the middle child, the youngest child, the oldest child, the oldest daughter, the caretaker, the black sheep, whatever it is? Your wounding surrounding home and family may be coming up for review, something that just feels a little bit more raw or emotional. You know, your family could hurt your feelings without meaning to. At this time, it could just be a little bit more of a vulnerable time family-wise, or someone in your family could be dealing with something they need to heal at this time as well, Capricorn. But it can be too that you just want to focus a little bit more on creating a more calm, healing energy within the home. You know, maybe you're wanting to cleanse the home, or you're wanting to send Reiki through the home or something to keep the energy clear. The sextile to Jupiter in the 6th makes me feel like for a lot of you, you're wanting to make sure that your home reflects your health and your well-being. So I don't know if you're changing something in your home that you think is toxic, or you think might be affecting you energetically or emotionally, or you're maybe doing some feng shui in the home, some energy healing or something like that, Capricorn. But I do feel for a lot of you, you might want to cleanse or heal your environment somewhat at this time too, to make it better for your health. The sun enters your social sector on the 22nd. I feel like for a lot of you, you could have more opportunities to, socialize around the time of, from the 22nd onwards with Scorpio season. Obviously, Venus being in your 12th house, you may not necessarily have as big a social battery, and you may be more inclined to work from home, or you may be more inclined to take a little bit of a step back from social activities. But with the sun going through there, you may be able to network a little bit more professionally, and you may also find that in being more social, you feel a little bit more like you're getting some sort of benefit from it that might not necessarily just be recharging your social battery. You might be connecting with people that can help you out or connect you with who you need to be connected to for whatever reason. You know, say for example, you're socializing and you're really looking for a good plumber. You socialize and someone recommends them to you right away. You know, there's sort of an assistance that you get from socializing. So if you'll have to navigate having 11th house and 12th house energy. They do tend to coincide, so it can be a little bit up and down and at times in terms of your social battery. But I do feel with Venus going through your 12th house, there may be moments where you just want to keep it a little bit more low key. That is what I have for you, Capricorn, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Aquarius, welcome to October. Hope you're all doing really well. So Aquarius, I just want to talk about Pluto for a second. Pluto is going direct on the 11th of this month, and obviously for you that means that Pluto is etching that little bit closer to re-entering your sign in November. Pluto going direct in the 12th house at the crisis degree on the 11th of October, the 10th, 11th, 12th of October. Pay attention to your dreams because they may be very profound. And they may really be coming from the soul. So you might have a dream about a past experience. You might have some sort of spiritual experience in your dream. You may be processing some emotions that you thought you had dealt with in your dream. Pluto energy can actually kind of catch you off guard because Pluto is very shadowy. And it tends to represent the stuff that we bury. Pluto rules the 8th house in astrology. Pluto transiting your 12th is one of those houses that we bury things in. So maybe some past emotions, some past betrayals may come up in dreams to be dealt with. This may also be a time where you do notice if there are any people who are not as well intentioned as you think in your camp. You know, with Pluto going through the crisis degree of your 12th house, you may notice if there are people around you who are not necessarily good influences or maybe have ulterior motives or don't have your best interests at heart. That can come up. Absolutely. But as I always say with the 12th house, oftentimes the hidden enemies are within us. It's what we don't see about ourselves. And that can sometimes be when we ignore red flags or we sweep issues under the carpet, so to speak. So you might be becoming kind of conscious of what you need to change in terms of any self-sabotaging habits or, you know, clearing out anything that just is not going to serve you in this new period that you're going into. Because Aquarius, we talked about it many times in your horoscopes, but Pluto going into your sign is going to be really, really focusing on you living the most authentic experience that you can have in this lifetime, where you're true to yourself and you really understand who you are at a soul level. So Pluto, the psyche demands to be heard, the soul wants to express itself, and it's very hard to be inauthentic or to lie to oneself when Pluto goes through your sign. So I do think for a lot of you, you could be experiencing this final cleanse of anything that feels a little icky. Is the most mature way that I can express that. So back to the start of the month. There's a solar eclipse in your 9th house. Now, this is all to do with your belief systems, Aquarius. So this may be a case with this new moon, this solar eclipse, that you are beginning a new chapter when it comes to what you believe in. And with the South Node going through this sector since July of last year, you may have been letting go of some barriers that you had, maybe to spirituality, maybe to religion, maybe to a certain belief system, maybe to education, maybe to travel. Barriers have been dissolved with the South Node, so maybe you're open to traveling more. Maybe you're planning a trip of a lifetime. Maybe you're going back to somewhere you have traveled to before. Oftentimes eclipses in the 9th house, we can return to somewhere we've been before when the South Node is nearby. Or traveling can become a big focus of our soul's expansion. It can also be a time when you're believing in something new, or you're exploring a new belief system. And it's interesting because whatever this is, Aquarius, it's kind of rooted in your professional life. Because Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, is actually in your 10th house, which is to do with your career, your social status, your reputation, your fame if you have it. So some of you might be exploring a new belief system, or maybe studying something new, beginning a new course of study through your work, through your professional life, or maybe experiences in your professional life are connecting you to new belief systems or the opportunity to travel more, maybe traveling more with work. With Venus being involved. But of course, this is a solar eclipse. It can be traveling with a partner, traveling for a partner. It can focus long-term relationships through the lens of long distance. So it could be that you're at a distance with a partner, you've had to move for a partner, you've met a partner that lives in a different country. There can be something about distance and relationships as well with this new chapter. But I do feel for a lot of you that this is really focused on travel and your belief systems. So you might be putting your interest into something new when it comes to your belief systems, Aquarius. One of the other things I want to mention this month is quite significant, but it happens 4 months out of the year every year. Jupiter is going to go retrograde. Now, Jupiter is going retrograde in your 5th house, and Jupiter going through the 5th house can be really lovely for matters of love, of romance, of dating, if not that, creativity, artistic expression, and if not that, pregnancy, children, births, those type of things with the 5th house. The 5th house is a notoriously happy house, so it can be a time to fall in love, it can be a time to give birth, it can be a time to be creative, you can be feeling very creatively inspired. Jupiter retrograde is kind of more so about reflecting on those topics. So reflecting on what you want from love, reflecting on what type of parent you're going to be, reflecting on your relationship to your children, reflecting and maybe looking back at something you've created that hasn't got its moment yet. You know, say you've written a song and you want to go back and maybe change it a little bit, tweak it a little bit, or reflect on it, or maybe just reconnecting to old passions, old interests, things that used to make you happy, doing them again. You know, bringing them back into your life with this. And as I say, just reflecting really on what it is that makes you happy and how you could engage more with what makes you happy. Because when Jupiter goes retrograde, we often focus more on making our own luck than expecting the great benefic to bestow it on us. We focus more on what we can do to engage with the process. So if it hasn't been that way thus far, maybe you're thinking about how you could change that, Aquarius. There's a full moon coming up in Aries, and this one's really focused on your communication. You may have something to say under this full moon, something to communicate, something to put out online, to put out in social media perhaps, with it being the 3rd house. I feel like for some of you it might be a bit painful, or it might pertain to a healing journey. Your sibling, if you have them, a sibling might have painful news, they might be hurt by something, or they might be doing some healing of their own because this full moon is conjunct Chiron. It could also be that there is something that needs healed with a neighbour, with a community, within your local environment. Chiron, it is the wounded healer for, you know, it has its painful wounds, but it can also use these wounds to help other people or help oneself. So I feel with the full moon conjunct Chiron, it can just be sort of exposing emotional wounding or insecurity wherever it is. So for you, it could be to do with siblings, it could be to do with neighbours, or it could be something you need to communicate or something you need to say. It could also represent a wounded thought pattern, you know, a certain way of thinking that actually maybe aggravates a pain body every time, you know, choosing a sad story in your mind instead of choosing an empowered one. That might be something you're working on healing. Now, the sextile to Jupiter in the 5th, it makes me feel like whatever is coming up at the time of this full moon, it is helping you grow and expand your concept of love with Jupiter being in the 5th house. So you may want to communicate something lovingly, or you may want to express love to someone who's in pain, or you may want to grow and learn from healing your own painful thoughts. So say you have this mindset and this repetitive painful thought that is actually just hurting you every single time you think it. You might address it with some self-love or love for another person or creativity or art, you know, writing, creating, channeling it into something that is creative. Some of you might also be under this full moon in the 3rd wanting to get something fixed when it comes to a car or when it comes to a phone or a gadget. Something may need fixed, Aquarius. I also want to mention from a professional standpoint, there's a bit of focus coming up for you that may put you in the spotlight professionally or may have you more visible professionally. That is that Venus is there until the 17th. The Sun enters there on the 22nd and Mercury enters there on the 13th. So particularly moving into the second half of the month, work could be a big focus for you. You could find yourself in the spotlight. You could find yourself very much professionally in the spotlight. And you might be having more social interactions with work, more conversations, more emails, more discussions when it comes to your career and when it comes to your goals, Aquarius. Particularly when the Sun enters there on the 22nd, you're really thinking about your professional life and you may be collaborating with someone at work. The Sun rules your 7th house of relationships as well. That is what I have for you, Aquarius, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Pisces, welcome to your October horoscope, Pisces. I hope you're all doing really well. So let's talk about October. I want to talk about your traditional ruler, Jupiter, is going retrograde this month. Jupiter goes retrograde for 4 months out of the year every year. You're familiar with this, but this time Jupiter's going retrograde in your 4th house of home, family, property matters, your living situation, and things like that, Pisces. So you may be feeling kind of reflective on these topics and perhaps even looking at your own beliefs or your own goals, because Jupiter also rules your 10th house of goals when it comes to these matters. So say you want to buy a home, say you want to move. This may be a time when you're reflecting on what it is that you need to do, what it is that you can do, what your beliefs are about it, what matters most to you, what your values are when it comes to where you live or your living situation. Or it could be that when it comes to family matters, starting a family, having a family, or matters that are already going on in your home, you may be reflective on what the goal is. What's the end goal? What does the future look like? What are you doing? What are you bringing to it? What would you need? What would you like when it comes to these matters? So you kind of have a reflective, it's a check-in point, effectively. If things have not developed the way that you hoped, with Jupiter going through the 4th, this is the inventory time to address what you're doing, what you believe, because Jupiter is your traditional ruler. So you may be reflecting on your home, your living situation, your relationships to your family, and your role within the family, Pisces. Now, we have a lot happening in your 8th house this month, and the 8th house is effectively bringing you into the energy of spooky season, because the 8th house is the mystery, the occult. It is where you may be finding yourself more drawn to darker topics or mysteries or something that is considered taboo, Pisces. And you might just be really feeling the Halloween spirit with the 8th house. But you may also be drawn to having a bit of a metamorphosis, having a little bit of a change, because we do have a solar eclipse coming up in your 8th house in the 2nd. Now, this solar eclipse could bring about some sort of new beginning when it comes to a joint financial relationship. It could bring a change when it comes to matters of tax, matters of inheritance, loans, grants, money that you get from the government, money that someone else gives to you. There can be a new financial relationship or a new beginning happening for you when it comes to your finances through a relationship to another person. So it could be that perhaps there's something changes with, for a lot of you, your spouse or your partner's money, because it is conjunct Mercury, which is to do with relationships. For some of you, it could also be that you're beginning a new intimate relationship at this time as well. But it can also be that maybe you're developing a new interest or a new start when it comes to the occult or when it comes to things that are considered taboo. You know, you're more interested in the mysteries of life. So you might find yourself studying astrology. You might find yourself studying tarot or divination or having more of an interest in it, Pisces. Connecting to an astrologer, for example, because Mercury rules your one-on-one relationships. That can also be where you're consulting someone at this time as well. And it can also be where you're wanting to deal with something when it comes to your emotional baggage. things from the past, psychological matters. It could be a time where you're signing up with a therapist. And it could be with Mars in the 5th in square to this, you could be dealing with something from childhood, or perhaps you're maybe dealing with difficulties with a child and you're maybe, looking for ways to cope with this or deal with this, and maybe enlisting some help from somebody else. There is going to be, this eclipse is ruled by Venus in the 9th. The 9th house is a very lucky house. But it can be that you're looking at this new beginning from a rather philosophical lens, or you're really enlisting your belief system, or you're really enlisting your education. If you have a degree, maybe you're getting to use it when it comes to this new beginning. You're getting to use your own knowledge. It may also be that this new beginning financially is linked to a move abroad, a relocation to a different country, or maybe even to do with your higher education. Some of you could be getting a student loan. You could be getting a grant for your education, or it could be for some of you that you're getting a visa that requires a sponsorship or some sort of matter like that, with Venus being in the 9th house. And it could also be that you're beginning some sort of relationship with somebody who is perhaps from a different country, or someone that you know through university or college of some kind, Pisces. I also think with Pluto going direct in your 11th house on the 11th, this is going to be a time where perhaps you are doing a final cleanse when it comes to friendships, when it comes to the groups that you're a part of, the teams that you're a part of. It's very likely that there's some sort of change occurring in these areas. So I don't know, for a lot of you that could be that maybe you're letting go of a friendship, maybe you're letting go of an association to a particular group or a membership or something like that. Or, for some of you, you could be joining a new group or membership or team. Somebody could be leaving a team. Pluto has a way of exposing secrets. So some secrets may come out when it comes to a team or a group or a friend. They could be quite big with Pluto being at 29 degrees, but it might also be a time when you're really changing your vision of the future and you're saying, okay, I want something different. What are my beliefs about this? Because Pluto rules your 9th house in modern astrology. So maybe you're changing your belief systems or your ideals when it comes to what the future looks like for you, and you're more considerate of how your beliefs affect your choices. So maybe you are adapting to accommodate that. We also have a lot of activity coming up this month in your 9th house. So particularly from when the sun enters your 9th house on the 22nd, Pisces, really nice time to travel, really nice time to take a trip, to take a voyage. Venus is there until the 17th. That's also a pretty nice time to travel. It's a better time for getting on with people at university, at college. It's a better time for getting on with people who come from different backgrounds to you, different religions, different countries. It favors those type of relationships, Pisces. But it can also be that you're maybe making travel plans, or you're taking some sort of trip at this time that could be really positive for you, Pisces. Venus enters your 10th house in the 17th, which is when you may find that you're more professionally favored. When Venus goes through the 10th house, you are likely to get on better with bosses, better with people in positions of authority. You're likely to be the first person they think of when it comes to a promotion or when it comes to a new role. It can also be that you're more favored in the public eye. So if you have a public profile, you might notice that people are more responsive to you in a positive way with Venus being there. Venus does rule the 3rd house of social media, so it might be a time when you're more communicative online as well. On the 17th, we have a full moon in your 2nd house. As I've been saying to all the other signs, it is in a conjunction to Chiron, and this means that the full moon has the potential to expose any wounding or insecurities that we have wherever the full moon falls. And for you, that's in your 2nd house of money and finances. And it's worth noting, Pisces, that Mars, which rules your money, is in shadow from the 5th of October. So when it comes to your money, you may be doing a little bit of reflection, and this could be a longer term thing, because this full moon may expose some wounding when it comes to money, how you spend it, how you make it. And with Mars being in shadow, you may be deciding to reel it in a little bit with spending, because you may notice that it's coming from a wounded place. It can also be that if you're in a healing profession, this full moon is where you're making money through something to do with healing. You're maybe making money through being a Reiki healer or a doctor. Maybe it's your first paycheck, for example, of that. But it can also be that you're spending money on your healing, on your wounding, on looking after your health and your well-being. Pisces, you might be wanting to invest more in healing yourself or addressing some wounds that come up around the time of this full moon. Maybe you decide, I can't ignore these anymore. It is in a sextile to your ruler Jupiter, so I feel like you're wanting to support yourself, you're wanting to look after yourself, you're wanting to grow, you're wanting to expand. Maybe this is for growing your family, maybe this is for buying a home. Whatever the case may be, Pisces, you're wanting to get to grips with any wounding that you have around money. That is what I have for you, and I will talk to you soon.